Now, who can you hear here saying it's like, yeah, come on, Timberland? All right, welcome into the Yahoo edition of the Deeper Dive. We are here with you for the next half hour, and then the expanded Deeper Dive to Live Before Lock. Everything that you need for this 6-game slate, we have you covered. Myself, Matt LaMarca, most importantly right now for the next 30 minutes. Jordan is in the house. He's here for the long haul, but the two of us just to look at Yahoo here on this slate. You out there, we appreciate you hanging. Just hit that thumbs up button, please, right away. And make sure you're subscribed across the board here. We'll tell you about what's going on with Yahoo and a bunch of other stuff happening in a minute. But we have to ask how Matt's Monday is doing. My Monday, well, I can stomach the Philadelphia Eagles getting their ass chopped up, sliced, delivered, and handed to them in the playoffs. But as we were talking before the show, I cannot, nor will I stand for Seth Curry not taking a 3 in 3 quarters of a basketball game. No, sir. That's how my Monday's going.
Well, as you know, I'm a Jets fan, which means most of my existence is spent rooting against the Patriots. So it was a good weekend for me. It was fun. I had a little coin invested on the Bills and got to drink some Patriot fan tears on Twitter. It was just a great, great evening.
I will say the loss by the Eagles was mitigated drastically by the humiliation of the Dallas Cowboys at the hands of the San Francisco 49ers.
Humiliation,
so I can relate.
Really the only word you can use, too.
Yes, I can relate, man. Donovan McNabb not knowing a game ends in a tie has been replaced with Dak not knowing that you have to hand the ball to the judge first. My goodness. All right, my friend. So we have a busy slate here today. The back half, if you will, on MLK. A lot of things happening earlier on. Both of our squads took L's. We won't talk about that. That's the rear view. But as far as tonight is concerned, what are you looking at? Is it health? Is it trying to take advantage of maybe somebody on the rise? Is it trying to fade maybe somebody big in the field? What were you looking at mainly as the overall approach tonight for the slate, Matt?
Yeah, not a ton of value as things stand currently. Like, normally we come on here and there are a bunch of guys in that $10 to $15 range that you can feel pretty comfortable about. I don't see a ton of those. So it might be a slate where a little bit more balance is required than some of these other slates we've talked about. As far as like injuries that we're still waiting for, there isn't a ton. You've got Gary Trent Jr. is questionable. Bam questionable for the Heat after missing, I think, 22 straight. And that's really it. Melo for the Lakers, but that's kind of a minor thing to monitor. So there's a decent bit of absences, but a lot of it is already kind of established, which is nice.
All right, so let's dive into it here. And then anything you're looking at on the Yahoo slate out there, if you have any questions, direction, maybe thoughts here for this 6-game slate, hit us up in that chat, as well as that thumbs up, of course, and being subscribed here. So let's look at the point guard spot. And I'm always curious as far as where you're looking to allocate your money first and foremost. Not a name so much, but where you're targeting. Are you targeting the top? And there are some spend-up options from Luka to Murray, who I know has been a big topic of this show consistently more often than not. You do have a couple of $40 plus pay-up options on the slate here. But if you were looking at a balanced attack, there's definitely some value if you were looking to sacrifice 10, 15, possibly even more on the spending range. So where to begin as far as where you're narrowing down cost?
Yeah, I'm not really looking at the expensive players here. Certainly you can consider Luka at $49. I think that's a pretty fair price tag for him. But DeJounte, who, as you mentioned, we've leaned on kind of all year. Now, Derek White is back in the equation, and Murray's usage is going to take a bit of a hit, right? He dropped to 25.5% usage rate in his last game, and that was with White playing just 25 minutes. He'll probably earn a few more minutes moving forward. So I think Murray's price tag, it's as high as it's been all year. We have some room for it to come back down to reality now. Where I'm really starting is Cole Anthony at $29. I think that's a really good price tag for him. He's somebody who has been excellent recently from a fantasy perspective on a per minute basis, 1.22 fantasy points per minute over the past month. The minutes haven't been there the last couple of nights, but those haven't been the most competitive games. I think it's a good buy low spot for Anthony, especially against Portland, who doesn't play a lick of defense.
What about, speaking of Portland, you read my mind here. $30 clearly because of the circumstance. We do get McCollum expected back here, but I mean, come on. The volume, this man is shooting in Anthony Simons threes without a conscience out there. We were talking about this over the weekend, myself and Rinpack on the Deeper Dive, about taking him 5+ threes. He hit it in the first half. So I get it. $30 for Simons on the reg is probably not what you would rush to, but I don't know how much longer we can take advantage of full volume, especially because this would be McCollum's first game back, and we don't anticipate him playing 35 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to do it, this is really your last chance, I think.
Yes.
But I'm not particularly interested in that price tag. When Simons has shared the court with McCollum this season, he's at 0.78 fantasy points per minute. The usage rate decreases by 2.7% when sharing the court with McCollum. So even if you don't think he's going to play all that much in his first game back, you would still think that most of his minutes are going to come with the starting unit. So I think that's a little bit of a knock for Anthony Simons. You can't knock his recent production. There's no doubt about it. But I think that I'd rather be one game early in selling him than one game late.
Anybody else? I mean, the low option right now from the field, at least the punt option is going to be Campaign. There are quite a few people on Yahoo getting to Russ as well at $37. So looking at kind of those two, even Chris Paul at kind of a $33 range is popping up with some rostership.
Yeah, this is not a position that I'm particularly fond of today. I do think that just punting with Campaign at $10 is fine. Westbrook, I've heard recently that he's as cool as ice, but not particularly interested in buying low on him either. Like, he did shoot the ball a little bit better in his last game, still just 29.5 fantasy points, has to play the Jazz today. I'm really not, I'm not in the business of buying low on Russell Westbrook. So this is a position where I'll be pretty condensed. I think I'll have a lot of Cole Anthony, some Campaign. If you wanted to pivot off of Payne to like a DeLone Wright, I think you're okay in doing that if you don't want to eat the ownership. Or maybe a guy like RJ Hampton, who has been playing a decent bit, even with Suggs and Anthony both in the lineup. He's hit 21 minutes in back-to-back games. So if you want to pivot off the chalk of Campaign, I think there are some ways to do it. But for the most part, this is a position where I think I'm going to play it pretty straight today.
Now, was that you singing Foreigner, or was that you singing the Foreigner cut that was sampled on the MOP song Cold as Ice?
I was just singing the version that the PA guy was playing in Sacramento the other night every time Westbrook laid another brick.
There you go. All right. Well, I don't know where he was pulling it from. That's the more important thing. I was appealing to you as the New Yorker here with the MOP reference. Jeez. Sorry. All right. Let's move to the 2 spot. You are getting some props, by the way. Even Sleepy Joe finishing out that. We don't tease us, man. We'll expect one of these each and every show now. You went from Nas references to a little bit, like a little sprinkle of some harmony here. Don't tease us, Matt.
Everybody knows. Well, not everybody knows, but I love to sing. I get down at the local karaoke spot from time to time.
Is that right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I've been known as Pipes. They call me the man with the golden pipes.
Just now I could hear it. Like, that was not you butchering Foreigner by any means. You nailed it. What's all right? So give me your 2 go-to songs, but they can't be anywhere near the same genre.
All right, number 1, and it's really number 1 by a mile for me. This is a guaranteed crowd pleaser. Semi-Charmed Life, Third Eye Blind.
Okay. That's you, though. Like, That's your go-to karaoke #1 song. You're in a room full of strangers. There's $1,000 on the line for karaoke. That's what you're going to.
Yep. I know it. I know it like the back of my hand at this point.
Okay.
I feel confident I can deliver the goods.
Now, quick question, quick follow-up. What happens if somebody right before you takes that song? Now you need another one.
We're going to some Sublime, I think. That's also a crowd favorite. You hit them with a little Sublime joint. You break out something. Get the crowd going. That's the key to a good karaoke song is it's got to be something people know.
Yes.
And something that's got a little bit of an upbeat tempo to it. And it's not that hard to sing. Also,
you got to get the crowd in. Definitely got the crowd. Chat's loving it, man. Beautiful. All right, let's hit the 2-guard here. And where are you now? Look, spending up here is clearly not the same. We referenced McCollum. I don't know how eager you'd be to get to him, especially coming back. However, if you are spending up, you do have Donovan Mitchell there, and even Devin Booker on the road against the Spurs here. So maybe attacking any of those guys or simply maybe trying to take advantage of Dallas, knowing that they have a really good matchup at home against the Magic.
Yeah, I think the top guys stand out as pretty underpriced. You know, Devin Booker at 32 is a nice option against the Spurs. Donovan Mitchell, 37, taking on the Lakers. Both of those guys are fine. I don't know if I necessarily want to play either of them as chalk, though. You know, they're both guys that need to score the ball, particularly shoot the ball well to return value. And I'm always okay with being underweight on those players when they're popular. So the question then becomes, who do you pivot to? And I do think that there are some interesting choices. You mentioned Jalen Brunson. The minutes have been there, even with Luka back recently. I think he's pretty fairly priced at $25. I don't mind him. I think you can go with a guy like Max Struss, potentially, if you want to go even a little bit cheaper with no Kyle Lowry tonight. I think he's somewhat interesting as like a low ownership play at just $15.
Yeah, I was just looking at the field here as well. And, you know, Monk is popping up 20%. So I don't know if you plan to be somewhat overweight to the field there.
No, I'm never really in the Malik Monk market. Don't like it. Don't like being in the Malik Monk market. I'm okay with fading him there. It's tough to navigate these projections today because you got games from like 17 different slates all melded together. And in my head, I'm trying to pick out who's in the night slate, who's in the main slate. It looks like for ownership wise, another guy that I think is worth some consideration would be Jalen Suggs. We saw him do some really good things on a per minute basis earlier this year. The minutes have been down in his 2 games back. He's played 22 and a half and then 24, but that number should go up. And what we really care about is that he's still commanding a ton of usage, 31% usage rate in the last game, 28.2% the game before that. So I think $19, he can very easily pay that price tag off.
All right. Anybody lower that you want to get to? It's kind of in that $11, maybe $12 or less punt range. I mentioned Allen is popping up as a favorable option, at least to the field that we have projected here for rostership at $11. So I don't know if there was any cheap pivot that you were getting to, especially building more lineups. Ingles is another one. I do think
that Allen is the best value of the punt plays here. But again, I don't know if I want to necessarily be playing Grayson Allen chalk. He's been playing about 27 minutes his last 2 games, and he's averaged 0.73 fantasy points per minute this season. So like he'll be able to pay off this price tag, but I don't know if he necessarily has a ton of upside.
Makes sense. What do you think Grayson Allen's go-to karaoke song is?
He's a country man, guaranteed country man.
Yeah, but like, you know, like new school country stuff. He's not like Johnny Cash country, right?
No.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
He's a dookie, you know. He's got to have something weird in his back pocket like that.
I could definitely see that. Hit that thumbs up button, please, if you're hanging with us, by all means. Full deeper dive comes your way in 15 minutes with Loughran and Adam. So make sure you take advantage of what we have here with Yahoo. That link below, you can sign up, get 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum, bunch of free stuff for you today, including this deal that's still happening, the super wild deal. You've been hearing a ton about it. And with the wild card round ending tonight, this is your last opportunity. Take full advantage of this. Super wild, all one word, all caps. And it's our NFL Weekly Express Pass. It's only $1 when you use that promo code. That's it. So it'll give you access to everything, our player and ownership projections, all NFL slates, everything we have to offer from showdown, single game contest, player projections, and more. Take advantage again. Super wild, one word, all caps. All right. 3 right now. Butler up there at the top. Middleton, still no Holiday, so I don't know how appealing this is here at $34. Let's start. You can even slide in Josh Giddey at $27 if that interests you. But let's look at those top 3 guys first.
For me, this is a great Jimmy Butler spot. Love the fact that he has projected ownership right now under 10%. Still no Kyle Lowry for the Heat tonight. This is also like a cheap price tag from what we've seen for Butler this season. He's been priced as high as like $46. So he's down to 41 in this spot. If Bam is ruled out, I think he is arguably the best play on the slate at his price tag. Even if Bam is in, I think $41 is really too cheap to pass up. Love Jimmy Butler as a pay up tonight.
All right. So looking at anything to counter that, beyond if it's and look, Middleton, you're actually pivoting away from the heavier owned guy in Middleton. He's right there at the top at least for that position on Yahoo, just over 26%. So I don't know if you were just looking at moving away from the field as a bonus there, or if that number isn't really a deterrent to you and you see yourself being either on or maybe even overweight to Middleton.
I'll be underweight on Middleton, but it's really mostly just because I really like Jimmy Butler. I think Middleton is fine at his price tag here at $34. It has come up, a good chunk over these last couple of weeks. He was somebody that was 26 on January 5th. Now he's up to 34. So I don't love the price tag on him, even with Holiday out of the lineup. But yeah, to me, like I'll pay the extra $7 for Jimmy Butler every time.
So pivoting away from Butler at the top, a couple of guys that are going to, like Bridges, for example, is a cheap option that's super popular, though, that we have projected. So maybe it's moving away. Maybe you're paying up a little bit more for Wagner. Maybe you're looking at Hunter as another pay down option there, even all the way down, I would think, to paying up. You mentioned paying the extra $6-7. So maybe it's moving in the opposite direction from Bridges and $20 at Bogdanovich.
Yeah, but I don't hate Boyan tonight. He's been red hot recently, and this game with the Jazz and the Lakers should be the best of the day from a fantasy perspective. It's got the highest total on the slate. So I don't hate Boyan, but I think Hunter is my preferred pivot. The minutes are there for him right now, 29 and a half in back-to-back games. He didn't take advantage of those minutes in his last contest. He finished with just 17.6 fantasy points, but I think he has the upside for much more than that. He's averaged 0.84 fantasy points per minute since coming back to the lineup. So I think there's upside for a better performance. I like him at $13.
Anybody else before we hit Giannis and the rest of that 4?
I'll give Josh Giddey a shout out too. Josh Giddey always seems to have he's always going to have upside, right? Like we prefer to target him when Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is out or the team is shorthanded, but he can pop off for a triple-double any single night. So he's somebody I'll have a bit of exposure to as well at $27.
All right, so let's keep it moving here. And we do have, as far as this slate, that earlier game at 6, right, with the Bucks and the Hawks. So the 4 here, Giannis at the top, $56. I know we have LeBron kind of hovering, but it's taken a lot to move you off of the Giannis rock when he's on the slate for us.
Yes,
see, I pay attention.
I do think if you're paying up for one of these guys, I'm certainly playing Giannis at 56 instead of LeBron at 55. Even though LeBron has been great recently, the fantasy production is up to 1.66 over the past month per minute. He's playing a really strong handful of minutes. He's still not Giannis, right? Giannis is at 1.8 fantasy points per minute over the past month. Really, the only comparable Giannis has from a fantasy perspective is Nikola Jokic. So I would rather spend the extra buck and lock in the upside and the safety with Giannis. But as we kind of alluded to earlier, I think it's tough to get to one of these guys tonight. There hasn't really been a value play that's jumped off the page to me yet. There is one center that's pretty good, but I still don't know if that's going to be enough to get Giannis into your lineup.
Royce O'Neal, was that the guy you were thinking of?
No, not a power forward, a center. Royce is fine. He plays a ton of minutes. He doesn't do much on a per minute basis. For me, I want my punt plays to have some upside baked in. And I don't think O'Neal really has that. He did go off for 30 a couple nights ago, but 30 is about as good as you're ever going to get from him.
So you don't like his over 1.5 threes at plus money back tonight. Is that what you're telling me?
I'm sorry. I haven't dug into Royce O'Neal props yet. I haven't dug into my Royce O'Neal 3-pointer props yet. That's later on in the day. Eytan.
I understand. Look, that's fine. I'm putting you entirely on the spot here. Absolutely. All right. So we can end. By the way, Malik Monk 4+ is 225 on the Bucks. So take a look. That might be worth the sprinkle. I know you don't like him DFS, but I'm not asking you to stake a lineup on Yahoo tonight. I'm just asking you to sprinkle a little bit. His over is 2.5. All right, let's end here at the center spot. And if it's again at the top, you really aren't spending a ton of money. Mentioned Bam kind of hovering there. So let's look at Bam as going and looking at the hypothetical that he's in.
Can't play Bam. I love Bam. One of my favorite players. I have a 1-of-1 Bam Adebayo rookie card. One of my best cards in my collection. Love it. I wish him nothing but the best, but he's going to be limited in his first game back. The Heat don't really need to push him since year 7 has been playing so well in his absence, right? I think Bam, if he is active, probably 25-ish minutes, I think is fair for him. And it's just, you can't play him with that little playing time. The best option here is just going down and grabbing JaVale McGee at $13. JaVale is likely going to start with DeAndre Ayton out of the lineup. And JaVale, we know, is just an absolute monster on a per minute basis. 1.34 fantasy points per minute this season. So if he starts, even if you only want to give him 20 minutes or so as the starter, I still think that's more than enough for him to pay off this price tag. There's just such little value tonight that I feel comfortable with, that playing McGee at this price tag kind of feels mandatory to me.
Now, have you dove into McGee's 3-point props out there?
Oh, yeah. That was high on my priority list. Take the under on 0.5.
He's not even on the books. All right. Give me a plus 10,000 at least for a 4+ threes. Jeez. Oh, man. Anything else that we need to cover at the center spot? Because I think from where you are to where we have your money allocated, also to where you are with the field, it makes a lot of sense. The limited guys that you've targeted here, especially with the McGee and the cost.
I do think you should consider Bobby Portis if you want to play 2 centers. Portis has been, very good for the Bucks with some of their absences. He's been just a reliable producer for them all year, so you can play him. I think Pirtle at $22 is fine. He missed their last game, but he's expected back tonight. And he's just been crushing recently. So for me, again, center is kind of a 2 position if you want to play someone other than JaVale. If you're gonna use a Bobby Portis, a Jakob Poeltl, or even a Yusuf Nurkic, somebody like that, you do it with McGee. You play one of them in the utility spot, but JaVale kind of feels like he has to be in there.
Don't worry, I'll spare you the return on Bobby Portis 3+ threes tonight. Appreciate everybody hanging with us.
Do you have like a sports book that only accepts 3-pointer props? Like, why the threes? Why the obsession with 3-pointers?
Because they're coming in extreme volume now in this game, as you can see. So if you identify the right guy, you could get 10, like Rozier today. What do you go? 4 of 11, right? Over 5.5 threes was like 640 on FanDuel. So these 3+, 4+, or over ridiculous numbers now. Simons is another example. We killed that over the weekend. Curry, we killed him over the weekend too. All you need is one guy to get the volume out there. And taking advantage of somebody who's out with COVID or what have you, it's an easier prop to attack. Doesn't mean that you're going to hit it, but it's just an easier prop to attack. And FanDuel has right. So FanDuel has the 2+, 3+, 4+. So that's where you can have some fun. Like Bobby Portis 3+ is +250. Bobby Portis 4+, where you start to take a risk, is +770. And a lot of times what you'll have is a guy that's like +110 at 3+, but he jumps to like +450 at 4+. So if you know there's volume and it's about getting in a rhythm, why not take the risk on the bigger play?
Yeah, let's go. I might have to.
You thought I just pulled this out of my ass, didn't you? Admit that.
I was curious why we were talking about JaVale McGee 3-pointers, but now I'm aware.
I don't think that's on the book, so you don't have to worry about that. Thanks for hanging. As always, we appreciate you. Lofty Adam coming your way with a full deeper dive at Matt LaMarca at Shander Show. You get us on Twitter. Thanks to Jordan. Please hit that thumbs up button if you haven't already, and we'll see you next week.
going on, everybody? Welcome to the Awesemo.com NBA Deeper Dive on a wonderful Martin Luther King Monday. Happy MLK Day, everybody. We got 6 games, kind of 5 games, kind of 6 games. We're going to touch on the Yahoo, sponsoring today's show, and FanDuel slate. Early game, Milwaukee, Atlanta first. Briefly hit on that since those 2 slates lock at 6. And then we'll break down the 5-game slate on DraftKings. I'm Dave Loughran at Lofty_D on the Twitters, joined by Adam Scherer at Ship My Money DFS. You look warm today.
Yeah, for some reason my apartment's freezing, but the hat helps.
How you feeling?
Pretty good.
Good.
Other than being cold.
You got no heat?
No, I have heat. It's just weirdly cold today. I don't know.
What's the temperature?
Heat, like outside or in my apartment?
Outside, yeah.
I don't know, 28, 29.
Oh, okay, that's not too bad.
No,
anyway,
it's just for whatever reason my apartment's not as warm as it usually is.
Gotcha. Okay, you rocking like thermals under your pants?
What pants?
Okay, well done. 5 games, like I said. We'll hit on the first game, the additional game for Yahoo and FanDuel. Happy to have you guys with us as always. Hit that thumbs up if you haven't done so yet, and subscribe to the channel. If you hate it, we will gladly refund your misery. Just click unsubscribe. You don't have to like us. As long as you like the content, hammer that thumbs up. Get us to 200 out of the gate. We got almost 1,000 people watching here. And, we're going to break it all down each and every game. And I also have, a bit of a special surprise today that we will debut somewhere at some point in the show. Many of you are regular watchers, are OGs. Those of you with us every day, you know what this is. But until then, we'll just tease it and hang out for a little bit. But people are probably excited to know what's coming down the pike on today's show. All right, Adam, how you doing so far on these early slates?
Didn't play the middle one, lost on the early one, had too much PJ Washington, who once again was awful. Had a lot of Miles Bridges, but not enough to make any money.
You had a nice little PGA weekend, though. You had a shot at taking first.
What'd you say?
You had a shot at taking first.
Yeah, had a chance at first, got third, so that was nice to make up for some of what I did last week in NBA and more specifically NFL.
I had a few lineups in there, but I don't really play a lot of PGA. I just threw some in using Ben's insight and our tools. And I went to bed on Saturday night, forgetting that like how late it went because it was in Hawaii, and I saw you in first, and then I woke up and you were in 18th. I was like, how'd that happen? I could have sworn it like 11:30 at night they were done, but
yeah,
no,
I kind of did the same thing because like I knew it was in Hawaii, but I still just didn't, I guess, realize how late it was going to go.
Right.
So I kept like refreshing it, like, oh, cool, I'm still in first, and then it was like, okay, this is just never going to end.
John Wick says, can you guys just send out a notification when Jordan's on? I want to skip all the less important parts. I hear you, bro. All right. First things first on this slate, same question I always ask you before we dive into each individual game. How are you looking at this from a value standpoint? Obviously, the one glaring piece of value with DeAndre Ayton already ruled out is going to be JaVale McGee, a stud per minute guy. But aside from that, can we go stars, scrubs? What are we looking at tonight?
Yeah, I think you can. I mean, McGee obviously opens up a lot for you. And just in like the initial lineups I crunched, getting, able to get to a lot of LeBron, able to get to a good amount of Luka. You can get to Murray if you want to. So, I mean, there's not a ton of pay up options. It's only a 5-game slate, but I think that it's relatively easy to get to them if you want to.
All right, let's make it happen. Like I said, we'll kick it off with Milwaukee, Atlanta, Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports, including that game, 6 p.m. tip. FanDuel, including that game, 6 p.m. tip. So let's break that one down first, Adam. Of course, our ownership projections have all of this factored in. And if you're looking for some free content today, we got you. NBA player projections and NHL. If you're getting into some puck action, you got NHL player projections also free on the site. You don't need a subscription or anything if you wanted to check that out. So let's hop on over to FanDuel and Yahoo and take a look at Milwaukee, Atlanta. Right now, actually, Adam, on FanDuel, the highest projected owned player on this entire slate is Bobby Portis.
Yeah, looking at the boom bust tool for FanDuel, he looks like he's going a little bit over-owned, 44.5% ownership, but still a 35% chance of being in the optimal lineup. Only 6,300 power forward center eligible. We've talked a lot about his playing time since they got rid of DeMarcus Cousins, and he's just continuing to play. He played 33.5 minutes last game. You're just likely to see him continue to play 32 to 34 minutes, give or take, as long as the game's competitive. So makes him just look like a really good option once again.
When it comes to Giannis, and obviously we have to look at him in context of the entire slate, LeBron's probable to play. You've got Luka against the bad OKC team. DeJounte Murray, tough matchup, but he's been fantastic. So you do have a number of these guys sitting north of 10K. Giannis, of course, the highest priced player right now. But how does he settle in? Is he once again your favorite top tier option if you're getting into these 6-game slates?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's really close with LeBron. Looking at the Boom Bust tool again for FanDuel, Giannis projected for 32% ownership, 28% chance of being optimal. LeBron only a 22% chance of being optimal, but 25% ownership. So I think that they're relatively similar. We still don't have Drew Holiday for Milwaukee, so we know that that's a bump for Giannis, at least in terms of his expected playing time. Played 35.5 minutes against Toronto last game. He's averaged about 34.5 minutes in the games he's played without Holiday over the last couple of seasons. So that is a bump, and it does certainly keep him in that same conversation with LeBron.
Okay. Where else do you look to? Of course, Drew Holiday is out again for this game. So, that's been the case for what, 4 or 5 games now?
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, it's been some time. But yeah, I mean, look, even with Giannis, there's no real negative leverage here, even at his price point. Like you said, Bobby Portis does have a negative leverage score, but still 35% chance of being in the optimal. Who else do you want to get to for the Milwaukee Bucks, if anyone?
Yeah, I think Portis and Giannis are the two that look like priorities. One guy that is standing out for tournaments is Grayson Allen at 4,600. He played about 28 minutes last game. He's not a very exciting fantasy option, but only projected for 5% ownership with about a 10% chance of being optimal. Looks like, maybe just a useful piece that you can use at lower ownership to kind of offset guys like Bobby Portis that are pulling a lot. Outside of that, though, I don't really see much from Milwaukee. It's pretty much just Portis, Giannis, and then I think mixing in a little bit of Allen in tournaments. Middleton's fine as well, but not the same sort of option as Giannis or Portis, I don't think, because both Giannis and Portis we can expect to play a lot more minutes than they were, or than in Giannis's case, than he averages for the season, whereas Middleton, I think, kind of just ends up being the same guy.
All right. Chad, thank you for the super chat. He says, great stuff this morning. Turned $10 into $1,300. Awesemo Hall of Fame incoming. Were you on an NBA show? You did an NBA show, or did you do the NFL show?
I did the NFL show.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Chad. I'll be sure to pass that on to whoever did the NBA show, but appreciate you and congratulations.
I think it was Josh and Greg.
Josh and Greg. Okay. Yeah. So good stuff. Josh and Greg, says Chad. What about on the other side where you've got, and somebody asked, I mentioned this a bunch, maybe you just came in, but you don't see the Atlanta and Milwaukee game on DraftKings because it's not on DraftKings. They're doing the 7 p.m. lock, and Yahoo and FanDuel are doing the 6 p.m. lock. So when it comes to Atlanta, if we flip it over to the other side of this one, are there any priorities here tonight?
I don't think in the same vein as guys like Portis and Giannis. I mean, you obviously still can get to Trae Young. He's 9,600, so a reasonable price tag there. He's playing without Bogdanovich, which has been beneficial over the last couple of years, but I still think that John Collins is the bigger piece. Like when both of those guys were out, you just saw Trae Young going absolutely nuts. With Collins back, I think he's going to still cut into Young's rates enough where I'm basically viewing Young like I normally would. So 9,600 is still a good price tag there. I think you should be getting to him. He's projected for 20% ownership with about a 20% chance of being in the optimal lineup. So I think that makes some sense. Beyond him, I think it's kind of just tournament flyers like Gallinari at 4,400 getting 14% ownership, Collins getting 10% at 7,400. I don't think there's a whole lot that stands out. Their rotation was weird last game. They started Gorgie Jang in place of Okongwu. Jang only played 12.5 minutes. Okongwu played 24 off the bench. That opened the door for Gallo to play 27 minutes again. He was in the closing lineup. So that's 2 games in a row now that we've seen Gallinari end up benefiting from Capella being out.
Anything else for Atlanta, or should we kick it off with the 5-game slate?
Yeah, I think we can move on to the 5-gamer.
All right. So Portland, with the return of CJ McCollum, essentially becomes like a black hole And we can get to Nurkic. Understandably, he's fine, and you might have some tournament flyers here. But here's what I mean by this, Adam. Something you and I talk about a lot, right? Is now you have a guy like, because Damian Lillard's out for an extended period of time. But now you have a guy like Anthony Simons, who even if CJ McCollum was going to be limited, and it's hard to believe he won't be returning from a collapsed lung, Anthony Simons is priced as if none of these guys are playing. CJ McCollum is priced as if he's been playing for a while and isn't going to be limited. And everyone else has seen their price points come up because McCollum and Lillard have been out for such an extended period of time. So it puts you into a situation where none of these prices have come back down to they haven't found their equilibrium yet. And it's probably going to be a little while until they do. So it's kind of tough outside of a Nurkic, right?
Yeah, I think it's particularly problematic in the backcourt because, like, I'm with you. I assume McCollum's going to be limited. I haven't seen if he's starting or not. I don't think that's been announced. But even if he starts, I assume he's not just coming out there and playing 38 minutes.
It's a risk at that price point too. Like, even if you do, I don't know. He's expensive.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So it's kind of like if CJ McCollum's starting and they say there's no hard minutes limit, but we'll monitor him, then I think you could at least make the case to like throw some tournament shots at him and just hope that he's in better shape than we're expecting. But assuming that he is on a minutes limit or that he's coming off the bench or something, he's not priced down enough to where I really want to be getting there, but he's still likely to do enough to hurt Anthony Simons at 8K. I mean, he's priced to play 36 plus minutes and have the ball in his hands constantly, and McCollum definitely cuts into that. If Norman Powell's back, it becomes even messier because Powell's a high usage guy as well. So the backcourt and to a lesser extent the wings, especially if Powell's back, become really difficult to get to now.
Is there anything? I mean, Larry Nance remains out, and there's a couple other guys that just kind of options that are either, rotational players that don't make a big difference. Is there anyone I'm missing? Because to me, it feels like Nurkic is the only one. And even Nurkic doesn't look like, a top premier play as he's been over the past week or so.
Yeah, I mean, I still like Nurkic quite a bit because for the entire season, he's averaged about 1.25 DraftKings points per minute. McCollum coming back will cut into his production a little bit, but he's still a very good point per minute guy. The biggest issue that Nurkic has had this year is that when Portland was fully healthy, you just kept getting 26, 27 minute games. I think that you're still getting 30 plus from Nurkic as long as he avoids fouls because you still don't have Zeller. You still don't have Larry Nance Jr., like you said. So I'm still anticipating that Nurkic is getting a lot of minutes, and I think it makes him look like the best option on this team. I think that Nas Little and Covington still play a decent amount as well, but they're also a little bit more expensive. So as far as guys that I anticipate getting to, it's mostly just Nurkic.
All right, let's talk about the other side of this one then. You've got Orlando. Wendell Carter Jr. remains out. It's essentially all we're working with there from an injury standpoint. But Cole Anthony, price point, low 7K, looking decent here against the Portland team that really doesn't strike the fear of God into anyone, right? I mean, they've got the worst defensive rating in the league. They don't play at a particularly fast pace. I think they're kind of middle of the league, if not a little bit further down. Yeah, 19th in pace. But this has been a dreadful defense, and it's not like CJ McCollum is going to make a huge difference, arriving back into the rotation either. So I understand this is not a particularly good Orlando team, offensively, defensively, whatever. But they're only 2-point dogs in a game with a semi-respectable 218 total. So very curious to know, where do you stand on some of the high usage guys for specifically Cole Anthony for Orlando in the best matchup they're going to get in a while?
Yeah, I'm definitely interested in Orlando here. 108 implied total is relatively high for the Magic. You just typically don't see it that high. And a lot of it has to do with, like you said, Portland's not a good team defensively. But there's some reasonable pricing here as well. I mean, Cole Anthony at 7,300, that's one of the cheapest prices we've seen from him in a while. He only played like 27 minutes last game, but that was a blowout loss against Dallas. He didn't really play in the fourth quarter outside of like a minute and a half to start it. So I still think that you can expect 32, 33 minutes from Anthony if this game's competitive. He looks like the top guy to me. But then when you start going down the list, I mean, Franz Wagner at 5,700 certainly still looks fine. He probably plays 32 minutes or so if this game's competitive. Mo Bamba may be back in the starting lineup here. He came off the bench last game. He's only 5,600. So if he is starting and not on an unannounced minutes limit, I think that he looks interesting in tournaments. You have a pretty cheap Chuma Okeke still at 4,600 with Wendell Carter Jr. out. He played 25 minutes last game, probably would have played around 30 had it been competitive. And then one guy that I'm really interested in that, and this won't surprise anybody that's watched our shows this year, but he made it into both of my tournament plays videos today. Jalen Suggs in his first game back against Dallas, he came off the bench. He was on a minutes limit, but he played 24 minutes and he played in garbage time, which is always encouraging to me when guys come back and they get run at the end of the game, because to me it signals that the coaching staff is prioritizing, getting them back in getting their conditioning back and getting them back into the swing of things. Like, they could have just said, okay, cool, like you played 16 minutes in your first game back, and then today I would assume he plays like 20. But since they ran him out there for as many minutes as they could, got him up to 24, I think it's certainly possible that he gives you 26 to 28 minutes here. And while he's really inefficient and not the best point per minute guy because of that, he has a 26% usage rate this year, and that's pretty difficult to find at his price point and ownership.
What's he priced at on DraftKings?
4,800 on DraftKings, 54 on FanDuel, if I remember right.
Let me just make sure on FanDuel. Yeah, you're right. You've loved getting to this guy at the ownership all season, right? I mean, he's not super low owned, but for a 5-game slate, he's not pulling a ton of ownership. This is someone that you've continuously gone back to just based on usage alone.
Yeah, and it typically doesn't work out that well, but the reason I like getting there is just normally when you're looking at, sub 5K guys, it's difficult to find legitimate ceilings that doesn't also come with a lot of ownership. And with somebody like Suggs, like you said, yeah, he's pulling some ownership. He's at 16% on DraftKings, but that's a lot of usage for him. And if the shot's falling, you assume he's going to shoot more and, obviously can pile up some points. So I prefer taking shots on guys like that over your low usage, maybe a little bit more consistent, but lower ceiling guys.
So I don't know if you mentioned this. So I was paying attention. I was looking at Jordan speaking. What is it? How do you say it? Tagalog? Tagalog? Okay. In chat with a fellow viewer. I did not know that you were half Filipino and that you could speak Tagalog, but just small phrases. Okay. Impressive. So you learn something new about Jordan Klein every day. Maybe we'll even see what he looks like sometime. Keep teasing this one out there. What I was going to say, Adam, is, and I do believe you hit on this a bit. I think you said like you could see him play 28 minutes, was it?
Yeah, and somebody was right and corrected me. I was thinking last game was his first game back. It was his second.
No, he's played 2, yeah.
Yeah, he played both ends of a back-to-back. But either way, 24 minutes last game, getting that garbage time run, I wouldn't be surprised at all if you get 26, 28 minutes here.
I was going to ask you, what does the closing rotation look like if this game's close tonight for Orlando? Now that everyone's mostly healthy.
I assume Bamba, Anthony for sure, Franz Wagner, Gary Harris, one of Okeke, Suggs, Ross, like whoever's playing the best probably.
Okay. Anybody else you want to hit on from the Magic?
No, I mean, I think just to recap it, Anthony's the priority, but Wagner, Suggs, Bamba, if he's starting, Okeke, even Harris at 4,500 all seem reasonable. Okay,
cool. I'm not making anything up, Anthony. Look in chat. Look what Jordan was saying. What are you talking about? Making things up. Do you think I could just make something up like that? I'm hardly smart enough to get through a show. All right, let's talk about Toronto. The Raptors. What's the spread here? I got it pulled up. 3-point dogs, 207.5 total. So yeah, I mean, just a very low projected scoring game, and we'll get to Bam Adebayo momentarily. But yeah, I mean, Miami plays at the 4th slowest pace in the league, Adam, 96 possessions per 48, and Toronto is essentially neck and neck. They're basically both bottom 5 pace teams, neither of whom play particularly terrible defense either. So I guess when it comes to this one, and Toronto obviously not nearly as talented defensively as the Heat, but when it comes to this game, it is one of the lesser appealing matchups you're going to get in basketball for Toronto on the road.
Yeah, it is a pretty unappealing matchup. The thing that stands out to me from a DFS standpoint, though, is that you're not getting much ownership going to this game at all. And I don't know if maybe that is a result of Gary Trent being questionable and Bam Adebayo being questionable, because I know sometimes it can make the ownership projections earlier in the day a little bit wonky until we get confirmation there. But there's just not much going to this game right now. And so it makes guys like, from the Toronto side, makes guys like OG Anunoby and Scotty Barnes, particularly on FanDuel, but on DraftKings as well. OG Anunoby, Scotty Barnes, these guys that are reasonably priced and likely to play 36 minutes, whether or not Gary Trent plays. It makes me interested in them, on a 5-game slate where it can be tough to get different and still be playing good plays.
All right. Jordan, yeah. Dopey said, if you're half Filipino, what is the other half? Or is there more than just another half? Hungarian, Jewish, and Filipino. Let's see that beautiful face of yours. It's time, man. He has been dreading this, but it's time to do it. We need to see the man behind the mask, the Wizard of Klein. Throw the producer cam up, baby, and let's see what we got. You've really been dreading this, haven't you?
Oh yeah, this is.
I don't know why.
I've had
There
nightmares.
he is. There he is. We finally got him. So we're going to work this in whenever we have some interactions with Jordan Klein. Jordan, I will expect you, and it doesn't have to be just like stupid interactions, but whenever we get involved with you in the show, see chat, they love you, man. They love you. Whenever we look at this, the voice of God. Oh, God, it's a beautiful. Adam, you see this chat right now? I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's great.
It's so good. Even Josh. No, Josh, I actually just bought him a new mic. It'll be there tomorrow. I mean, everything's going to be. Oh, okay, there's an echo. Whatever. Who gives a shit? This is fine. You're not going to be on there anytime. All right, Jordan, take yourself off. That's fine. You're our new Gary Delabate, our new Baba Booey, except I'm going to treat you a whole lot better than Howard treated and Howard. I don't even know if you know that reference. Do you even understand that reference? No?
Talking to me or Jordan?
Jordan, you should know that reference. You're not much.
I mean, I only know it from you making it a lot.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, glad to see you, man. This will be part of the show from now on. We're not going to make this a talk show, but if we have, questions, comments, and whatever, and we're just having some fun, Jordan Klein is now a part of the show. Got that new mic coming for you tomorrow. We're going to be in business, man. All right. Anyway, back to our regularly scheduled programming.
Hang on,
Go ahead.
Just news that came through. We got the Orlando starting lineup. Suggs still coming off the bench. Mo Bamba still coming off the bench. Still interested in Suggs. Obviously would have liked him more if he were starting, just because I'd feel better about the minutes, but still think it's likely he gets you 26 minutes or so, particularly if he's playing well. And then Norman Powell out for Portland. CJ Elleby also out for Portland.
All right. Anything else for Toronto that we want to get into?
I don't really think so. I mean, I think it goes without saying that you can always play Siakam or Van Vliet in tournaments. We are just still waiting on that Gary Trent news. If he's out, then I assume you're getting one of the cheap centers starting again.
Okay. And yeah, hit the thumbs up.
Achua, rather. Birch is also out.
Hit the thumbs up for our boy Jordan Klein. We got to get to 500. He's been dreading this, but he's a man of the people. He told me once he hates being complimented. So now I just frivolously, just liberally compliment him, even if it's not true, but it usually is. So, I mean, I think 500 is very doable today. He faced his fears. He's with us, now part of the show. Jordan Klein, everybody. I'm happy to have you, man. All right. Flip to the other side of this one with Miami. Bam Adebayo, he's questionable, but he's expected to play. He's coming off a thumb injury. So from a conditioning standpoint, it's still yet to be seen at him. He's been out for like, what, a month and a half. He's been out since late November. So over a month and a half that Bam Adebayo has been sidelined. How many minutes, assuming he plays and starts, do you have him in for tonight?
Like 30, I think is reasonable.
Yeah, it's not a lower body either. It was a thumb.
Right, yeah. Like Alex has him at 29. That makes sense to me. To me, the way I typically think about this is that he's probably not yet in game shape, like, to actually play a full NBA game as in the way he needs to. But his conditioning, for the most part, should be pretty good. Like, it was a thumb injury. It's been a month and a half, but like, there's no reason he hasn't been doing stuff leading up to his return. So unless we get a firm number of like 24 or something. I think 30 is a pretty reasonable guess.
Okay. And that price point, I mean, is the price point anywhere on any of these sites at a spot where you could make an argument for it in tournaments, or should we pretty much just be backing off any Bam Adebayo shares, shares today?
Yeah, I don't really see it. I don't think it's going to be that easy to get to him. He's still he's only center eligible, which obviously is always a problem. And then assuming he plays around 30 minutes, I just don't think he looks that good.
So Jimmy's price has come down considerably from the last few games, right? Like bottomed out at this point. But with Bam Adebayo returning, can't even say his name today. Very strange. With Bam returning, how much does that take away from Butler from just an overall per minute stance?
Yeah, I mean, he's been a lot better with Adebayo out. I'm just trying to see. He's only played one game this year without Lowry and with Adebayo. But overall, in the games that he's played with Adebayo active, he's played 15 games, 1.21 DraftKings points per minute, 27% usage, 25% assist percentage. In the games without Adebayo, he's averaged 1.36 DraftKings points per minute in 10 games. So, he's still very good, but not as good as, he would have been otherwise.
Thanks for the super chat, Michael. Rocking that free one as a member here of Awesemo. 5 months. Says good stuff, fellas. Thanks, man. Appreciate you watching. Someone said you just skipped over the best value play in Achua.
If Trent is out, then yeah, he looks good.
Do you have a lean on Trent?
No.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, it's a wait and see. Plus, Josh.
And I didn't skip over him. I specifically said that he would start if Trent was out.
Yeah, I know. Plus, you have Josh and Greg coming up next, live before lock, taking you up till tip 7 o'clock. So be there for that. Any news breaks, they'll be here to talk about it. What else do you want to get to, if anything, from Miami? I mean, obviously Butler has seen a price decrease, but Bam coming back, probably playing, like you said, 30 minutes, takes some of the shine away. He's still getting around 15%, I think, understandably so. Anybody else from Miami that stands out at all?
I'm interested in Hero at relatively low ownership. You don't have Lowry, so there is still the potential for big minutes for Hero. I think it's likely you get 34 minutes or so. Obviously, the usage and the production can come and go with Butler back, and we're assuming with Bam back. But he's not getting much ownership here. On DraftKings, only pulling about 5%, 12% chance of being in the optimal lineup. So I do like Hero in tournaments quite a bit.
Okay. Hey, Yahoo, Daily Fantasy Sports, sponsor of the Deeper Dive. Not sure if you guys have gotten in on it yet. I think most of you have. By this point, if you didn't take full advantage of the free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum, I can't save you. Nobody can. You cannot be helped. But in the event that you're new and you want to take advantage of it, or you've just had an epiphany and said, what have I been thinking? This is essentially free. It is free. Plus, Yahoo gives you $10 when you sign up, and it goes straight into your account and free credits. I don't know if it's still the YSRPs, Yahoo Sports Rewards points, but you still get it. And you get a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum, everything on our site, not just for basketball, but football, PGA, MMA, you name it, everything. And if Yahoo has contests, we've got content for it. Ownership tool, boom bust tool, top stack tool, lineup builder, all of that stuff, right? Player projections, you name it, all of which are created by Alex Baker, Awesemo himself. So definitely recommend getting in on that. Jordan, did you throw that link in chat? Yeah, use that link in chat or use the one in the description below. All you got to do is sign up using our link, get a free month of Awesemo Plus. Again, $90 value, and take advantage of the actual contest structure they have. I know Ben talks about it a lot. I talk about it a lot. Josh mentions it all the time. They have the best payout structures you're going to find, where they're paying out 33+% of the field on a lot of these contests. And the contests where they're paying out like 20-25%, min cash is still double your money. You won't find that at any other site. So it's not just getting a free month. It's not just signing up, getting $10 in your account, but playing on a site where you're going to find better payout than literally anywhere else. So tonight you got the $50,000 NBA baller, the $150K Monday night baller, and use all of our tools at Awesemo when you get that free month. Give yourself a chance at taking something down over there on Yahoo. We've been getting more and more screenshots for people rocking the Awesemo avatars for our Hall of Fame segment. So hopefully we'll see you over there. And if you do decide to do this, join our premium Discord, hop in the office hours where you got the pros helping you every day. Like, I mean, the Colts has been huge at that, always in there, helping you better your game. Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports in the description. Find the link or the one in chat, and come get your free month. Hang out with us and win some money over there on Yahoo. All right, we got 3 down, 3 to go. Unless you got anything else for Miami, we can move to OKC and Dallas. Oklahoma City Thunder. No real, I mean, it's such a weird slate, Adam. I mean, there are a lot of teams that are just pulling very, very minimal ownership. OKC being one of them. I mean, they're not completely dead like some of these other teams, but as 11.5-point dogs, another low total at 210. What do you do with the Thunder at the top of the pool?
Yeah, I mean, pretty unappealing spot. 99 point implied total, slow Dallas matchup, relatively likely to not be a competitive game. Not that that's factoring in too much, but at the same time, you know, it is still on DraftKings only a 5-game slate, on FanDuel and Yahoo a 6-gamer. So there is some appeal in the fact that there's just not a lot of ownership coming to these guys, even though the matchup is not the best. You know, 15% ownership coming into a $5,300 Lou Dort on DraftKings is pretty appealing. OKC is still a little bit shorthanded as far as their peripheral players go. No Pokusevski, no Roby, no Kenrich Williams. So there is the potential for Dort, you know, to potentially play a couple of more minutes here. Just looks like a pretty good price tag on him. We know the ceiling that SGA gives you at 8,200. He's not pulling a ton of ownership either, only about 13% on DraftKings. Giddey at 12%. So it's not guys that I really love, but I think that using them just as relatively low owned plays makes some sense. And then Trey Mann, only 3K flat, I think also makes some sense. He's someone that we've seen play a little bit more with Pokusevski and Kenrich Williams not playing at 3K. Not somebody that's likely to do really well, but there's not a ton of really cheap value tonight either.
Is there anyone from this team that pops in the boom bust tool?
Not really. It's mostly just guys that are projected to be owned around where they should be. Dort on DraftKings projected to go a little bit under owned, like 18% to 15.5. SGA a couple points over owned. Man owned where he should be. Giddey a couple points over owned. Darius Bazley's played really well off the bench. He's 4,600, 8% chance of being optimal, 7% projected ownership. But mostly it's just a lot of guys that aren't that popular, but also probably shouldn't be.
With Dallas, were you at all surprised to see that Porzingis has the second highest optimal chance on this slate? Or is this something that doesn't surprise you whatsoever? I mean, he's sub 8K. He's down considerably from where he was last time he played. I mean, he's dropped. I'm sure you noticed this, but he was out, in COVID protocol for over 2 weeks, and then returned, played one game, 28 minutes at 9K, and now he's at 7,900 on DraftKings against the Oklahoma City Thunder as 11.5-point favorites.
Yeah, it's just a price that doesn't make a lot of sense. He played 27.5 minutes last game. He's played 16 games with Luka active this year. He's averaged 1.2 DraftKings points per minute. He's averaged 29.6 minutes per game. I think that if the game's competitive, you're likely to get 30 minutes or so. So it's just, yeah, it's a spot where the price tag, I think, is just wrong. You know, it's a good matchup, and it's a productive player at a cheap salary.
Is he actually? I wanted to see what his ownership was on top of just the optimal. 24%. Okay, it's really not bad. Is he one of your top plays today? Like, is he easy to work in the lineups for you?
Porzingis?
Yeah, is he one of your top plays?
Yeah.
What else do you do then? Let's talk. I guess it's only right that we talk about Doncic. Both of these guys pulling a lot of ownership today. And I mentioned it earlier. We don't have Giannis Antetokounmpo on this slate for DraftKings, just Yahoo and FanDuel with the 6 p.m. tip. So really, you've got LeBron, you've got Luka, you've got DeJounte Murray, and like those are the three premier options, all of them priced within 10K range. Where does Luka fall into that for you amongst those three?
I think he's a little bit behind the other two, but still a really good option. You're still talking about someone that averages around 1.4 to 1.45 fantasy points per minute and is in a good matchup. The reason he falls behind the other ones is that LeBron without Anthony Davis is around 1.6 to 1.7 fantasy points per minute. Giannis is in that same range. So I think it's hard to say that Luka is ahead of them, but $10,700 also is a pretty appealing price tag.
All right. So I guess when it comes to the rest of Dallas, you've got the two of the highest priced guys in the slate, as a matter of fact, in Porzingis and in Doncic. And then you've got Dorian Finney-Smith, Maxi Kleber, Tim Hardaway Jr. Any peripheral options that stand out to you? One might call them tertiary plays.
I wouldn't say stand out, but Kleber at 4,300 looks okay. Finney Smith at 4,400 looks okay. But I think the clear priorities are Doncic and Porzingis.
All right, let's talk about 2 games to go. Anything else from OKC and Dallas? And outside of Porzingis, who are the priorities here?
Nothing else really. I think it's just, dart throws at Hardaway, Kleber, Finney Smith. The priorities are Luka and Porzingis from the Dallas side. I don't think there's really a priority from the OKC side. One thing to mention, we just got the Atlanta starting lineup. Okongwu is starting over Gorgie Jang.
Okay, Okongwu over Gorgie Jang. Phoenix and San. Oh, last thing. We've got the last Monday night NFL Live Before Lock coming up tonight. Hopefully you guys will stick around for that. It's been a great show all year long. We've had the strategy show for Mondays and Thursdays. This is the last Monday night one, Super Wildcard Weekend. NFL trying to milk every dollar they can out of it, but I'm cool with that. Eric Lindquist, Matt Kajeski, Matt Savoca coming up tonight at 7:15, 8:15, taking you to kickoff. This is the last day to check out the promo Super Wild, all one word, all caps. Actually, just go to awesemo.com/promos. And when you do, it's right there. It gets you the NFL Express Pass for $1, which means all of our showdown content, the top plays tool is on there. The ownership is on there. All the simulations run, the optimal lineup percentages, you name it, all of that stuff, including a lot of main slate content as well, like the rankings, the light lineup builder, and a bunch of others. For $1, you get all that. If you do it today, you get tonight's slate. And then you're getting showdown slates. Saturday, you get 2 more. Sunday, you get 2 more. So that's what, 20 cents per slate. If you want to get all the best showdown tools out there that you're going to find, this is the last day to do it. It's a single $1. If you want to jump in, awesemo.com/promos. Instead of typing it in when you go to the other one, just go there and click on it if you want to get in on that for a single $1. And we'd be happy. Oh, and you can jump in the Discord as well. Even if it's just the Express Pass, you can still jump in our Discord. All right. Phoenix and San Antonio. We have no DeAndre Ayton, only played 8 minutes last game before his departure. He's coming off a big game prior to that as well, 27 and 12. Played 8 minutes, was on a pretty decent pace. He's been ruled out, which means that JaVale McGee, naturally, Adam, becomes the number 1 option here today on the slate. Even from an ownership standpoint, I don't think anyone's even, at least since our last update, no one's even close to him at this point. How much do you intend on getting today?
As much as I can.
Okay.
The issue here, well, it's not really an issue, but if you're scared off by the ownership, I think the problem that you're going to have is that this isn't $5,200 or $5,300 JaVale McGee where he still would look like a really, really good value, but there's, at least some chance if he plays like 21 or 22 minutes that he doesn't do that well. He's back down to $3,700, which is really a price that he should just never be at, because even if DeAndre Ayton were in and you were expecting to get like 16 minutes from McGee, he would actually still be playable at this price. As a starter, typically you're going to get 21, 22 minutes, if not more. Like in games this year where he has started without Kaminsky, he's been playing even more minutes. I don't know if that'll necessarily be the case tonight since Jalen Smith's carved out a role in the rotation seemingly. But at 3,700, it's just, it's so difficult for McGee to truly fail, assuming he doesn't, get hurt early or foul out immediately or something. It's kind of like the $3,500 Whiteside spot where he was really, really popular. He only scored 20 fantasy points. People got mad that we said they should play Whiteside at 3,500, and he was still in like every lineup at the top of tournaments. It's kind of the same thing tonight. The only, I guess, case I would make, if you wanted to get away from McGee, you do have Jalen Smith for only $500 more. If McGee gets in early foul trouble or Smith just plays really well or, whatever, Smith certainly negatively correlates with McGee and could end up having a better game potentially.
It's one thing you and I talked about a lot with guys like McGee and Whiteside and a few other just high fantasy point per minute center options. I mean, Drummond even being one of them back when he was in the 3K range. These guys could only, like you said, they could play 18, 16 minutes and still get you there just based on how productive they are. You don't usually get that. McGee's probably a guy that should just be priced a little higher than this always because he's going to be so popular. I mean, he's basically twice as high owned as the next closest player on this slate. What's his optimal line? His optimal lineup percentage or chances on, are 44%. on DraftKings. He has negative leverage, but still it's not crazy negative leverage given his ownership either, Adam.
Yeah, it's still, likely to be, he's one of the most likely guys on the slate to succeed. But the Jalen Smith thing pops up in the Boom Bust tool as well. Jalen Smith right now projected for 10% ownership, 23% chance of being in the optimal lineup. He's a good point per minute guy too. He averages like 1.1 DraftKings points per minute. If you get a 24-24 split, they actually both could do well. But if it's something like Smith plays 26 and McGee plays 22, you could potentially see Smith beat McGee. It's certainly not the most likely outcome.
So McGee on DraftKings is just an easy decision. What about McGee on FanDuel, where he's 4,900, still popular, not quite as popular, but 4,900. And then over on Yahoo, you've got JaVale McGee at $13, which is the obvious decision. We don't even have to talk about that. I think the one where you might make a much easier argument would be FanDuel. On Yahoo and DraftKings, it's a pretty simple call.
Yeah, and on FanDuel, I still think he's a really good play. I mean, he's one of the best point per minute guys for the season. Off the top of my head, I think he's around 1.3 DraftKings points per minute. I'm pulling it up now, but it's still, because the thing on FanDuel is the opportunity cost is obviously higher, and so raw points tend to matter a little bit more. Like, it's more difficult to make up a big gap in raw points. But for the season, yeah, McGee's at 1.34 FanDuel points per minute. So he's still certainly capable of just getting like 40 fantasy points.
Phoenix has been one of those teams that we've just had a tough time getting to most of the season based on the fact that they're all kind of appropriately priced most of the time. Can we break down, though, Jalen Smith a little bit more in depth here? He's getting around 10%. There definitely seems to be an avenue here where he could be one of the guys that gets you there. How much do you intend on having of somebody like him today in tournaments? If you're playing 150 lineups, what are you comfortable with just to maybe get some leverage off of a popular McGee, even though you're going to have a lot of JaVale McGee?
So what I'm going back and forth on is whether or not I'm willing to play them alongside each other. And I'm leaning towards being okay with it because Smith is power forward eligible on DraftKings. There's only 5 games. There's not a lot of really good value. And like I said before, if you get let's say you get 24 minutes apiece, they would both project as good plays at their salaries. So like the true Jalen Smith ceiling comes from McGee not playing as much as we would like. But I think that a lot of times you're just going to get enough minutes for both guys that they would look pretty good. And then people in chat have been mentioning Bismack Biyombo being, potentially taking minutes. Like, yeah, I guess there's a greater than 0% chance that they go with a 3-man center rotation. But we did get kind of a look last night when McGee started the second half. Biyombo played 6 minutes and 46 seconds of garbage time at the end. But prior to garbage time, the rotation was McGee and then Smith and then back to McGee. There was nothing to suggest that they were going to go with a 3-man center rotation.
Okay. Do you think it is possible that we get a 24-24 split?
I think it's possible, yeah.
Yeah, I don't see why it wouldn't be. When JaVale McGee, the last game he started, he played 23 minutes, 22 seconds, and Jalen Smith played 24-38 off the bench. There's your 48 right there.
Yeah, and the Spurs typically don't play small at the 5 either.
Right. Yeah, all right.
I'd be a lot more confident in both of them getting a lot of minutes if Cameron Johnson were out, but he's expected to play. But still, I think it's very likely that you get 48 minutes split between these two.
I don't know, man. The more I look at this, the more I convince myself that it's not crazy at all to get 2 guys that are both +1 per minute guy. They both average over a fantasy point per minute. That it's not crazy at all to have them in the same lineup. Yeah, Jalen Smith has power forward eligibility too.
Right. I'd feel differently if you were taking up both of your center spots here. I'd feel differently if we had 3 more games on the slate. I'd feel differently if we had, for lack of a better phrase, better games. But like you said, we talked about OKC. There's just a lot of kind of dead spots on this slate. So it makes me more willing. I think the opportunity cost is essentially a little bit lower than it could be. And it makes me more willing to just play them together.
And it's really not a horrible matchup either. Spurs play at a top 5 pace. They have a middle of the road defense. This is definitely one of those spots with the Spurs where you could see a good amount of additional peripherals in a spot like this. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong here, but I think everything that you just pointed out makes it at least feasible that both of these guys could be in an optimal together.
Yeah, agreed. And as long as the ownership is low on Smith, I definitely want to get there. And that's kind of the other thing, the other reason that I'm leaning towards playing them together too. If Smith's only going to get like 10% ownership, I definitely want to get there. But I also don't want to just like be playing non-McGee lineups.
Yeah, that's right. I see what you're saying. All right. My mic is low. I don't know. I've had these levels. I've been at these levels for quite some time. So maybe, I don't know. It should be fine. Anybody else you want to hit on for Phoenix? And of course, like you said, we are waiting on the Cameron Johnson news.
Yeah, he is expected to play. Somebody asked if I feel similarly about playing them together on FanDuel. I think it's a little bit more difficult sell because of McGee being 4,900 and the opportunity cost at center. Like I think on FanDuel, on DraftKings, like you can get a 26-minute Jalen Smith game and JaVale McGee still be one of the best values on the slate. On FanDuel, that's a lot less likely to happen. So on FanDuel, it's still not horrible to play them together, I don't think, but I don't think it's nearly as enticing as on DraftKings.
All right. Want to talk about the Spurs?
Yep.
So you mentioned earlier that DeJounte Murray, you actually have him, I'm assuming, based on what you were saying earlier, among the top priced guys, you have DeJounte Murray behind only LeBron on the slate that starts at 7:00.
No, behind Luka too.
Oh, okay. You said that you had Luka behind. You said you had him behind both of them. Maybe you misheard my question, or maybe I misunderstood what you.
I might have misheard you. I was referring to Giannis and LeBron.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, that's what I was talking about because I was talking 7:00. I said the slate that doesn't have Giannis on it, but
okay.
now it makes a lot more sense. Okay, he's still really getting. He's essentially on this slate as popular as Luka Doncic. Is there still some tepid interest in getting to DeJounte Murray today against Phoenix?
I wouldn't even say tepid. I think there's legit interest.
Okay, so it's just that you still like Luka and LeBron above him, but still he's up there with them at least.
Yeah, for sure. Like he's even in the games where Derek White has played this year, Murray's averaged around 1.35 to 1.4 DraftKings points per minute. We know Phoenix is a good team defensively, but both of these teams play fast. There should be a lot of possessions.
So is Cleveland, and he just dropped 30, 14, and 8. Just the other day, we were like, yeah, tough matchup against Cleveland, but he's been phenomenal.
Yeah, like he's really good. And one thing that makes him appealing is that he rebounds so well. And we've talked about this before, but when you start getting up to that 10K price range, it can be really scary to go to guards that don't rebound well. Like when you think about guys like Trae Young, he still has a massive ceiling and he's still going to have really big games, but you can't quite rely on those steady performances like you can with Murray, like you can with a Luka Doncic, because not only are they relatively high usage guys, Murray not on the same level as a Luka or a Trae Young, but he rebounds really, really well. He gets a lot of assists. He picks up defensive stats. He just does everything well when he's on the floor. He's averaging 2.8 steals per 100 possessions this year, 12.5% rebounding percentage, 37% assist percentage, 1.37 DraftKings points per minute. Just still feel pretty good about getting them.
You should. And he's got a 3% steal rate. Look, the guy's averaging 2.5 stocks per game on top of everything that you just mentioned. I mean, he's got that built-in floor that just makes it so much easier for him to have those ceiling games. Like you were saying with other guys, if you're not rebounding well and you're not knocking down shots, it's going to be tough. Look, he's faced the Phoenix Suns. I don't really doing this isn't all that helpful, but just throwing it out there, given that you mentioned it's not the best matchup. He's averaging 55 fantasy points, 18 points, 12.5 rebound or 12.5 assists, 8 rebounds, and 2.5 steals in 2 games. So again, it's just, he's really good, and you're going to continue to get this production from him. How much do you think, if you're talking Luka, LeBron, and DeJounte Murray, I think you, like you said, you probably have more LeBron than both of them, but you think you think that ownership will kind of be condensed among all three?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, so right now, looking at ownership projections, actually, I'm refreshing now because I think we got new ones. But 7 minutes ago, we got an update. We have Luka at 21%. We have Murray at 20%. I think given that, I probably get to a little bit more Luka and a little bit less Murray, just with them being close together, because I do have Luka a little bit higher. But I think that they both look good, and I assume I'll be playing them both.
Anybody else you want to hit on for San Antonio?
I don't mind Pirtle at 6,600. Like, I think it's going to be tough to really prioritize him because you have McGee taking up a center spot. You have Nurkic, who we already talked about. LeBron is now center only on DraftKings for God knows what reason. Like I know he's playing center.
That is the crazy. I saw that.
Yeah. So that's a problem. I mean, especially because he's only 10.9. If he were like 12,000 or something, it would just be like, okay, well, the opportunity cost makes him really expensive, but he's clearly underpriced. So, that adds to the opportunity cost of the position. So I think Pirtle looks fine, but going to be pretty tough to get to him in large amounts. I think $5,100 Keldon Johnson, I would say, is a pretty good price tag.
Dude, Keldon Johnson's the third highest owned player right now in our ownership projections.
Yeah, he just fits in really well, I think.
All right. Ready to close it out with Utah and the Lakers?
Yep.
All right. We're at, what are we, 109 likes. 109 likes to go to 500. We'll get there. And Josh and Greg will take us home. They're coming up right after this. Any news breaks, they'll hit on that. They'll go over everything, take your questions, super chats, all that good stuff. But if you haven't done so, even if you forgot, it's okay. You can atone for those sins by simply hitting that thumbs up. Maybe you're on mobile. Maybe you're on your cellular device. Just click out of that chat. Hit it real quick. Only takes a second. Thanks in advance. I think we'll get there. All right, Utah and the LA Lakers. Utah, this has moved a little bit. They're 5-point favorites now, 230.5 total. So highest total on this slate. The Utah Jazz will be without Whiteside. That's really it on this one. Gobert comes back. Whiteside goes out. Gobert is 24% owned against a Lakers team starting, LeBron James at the center position. When you look at the center position today in general, obviously Rudy Gobert becomes a solid option, but you have JaVale McGee there. We talked about Jalen Smith, power forward eligibility, but LeBron's only center eligible. Nurkic is only center eligible. So what does that do for someone like Rudy Gobert, kind of at an awkward price point, only center eligible, with two other guys being very good and relatively popular plays in McGee, not relatively, in McGee and LeBron?
Yeah, I was kind of surprised Gobert is getting as much ownership as he is, not because I don't think he should. I think he's a very good play here at only 8,300, but I thought there was a chance that maybe you would just kind of see him get, left off behind guys like Nurkic and obviously LeBron and McGee. And that, maybe that would be a spot, somebody that looked like he was not getting enough ownership. But right now we have him at 24% with a 20% chance of being optimal. So I think he's in the Nurkic bucket where I definitely want to get there. Like, I think that he's a very strong option. It's just that I know McGee's taking up a lot of lineup spots, possibly 100% of my lineups. And then LeBron's going to take up a lot of them. So it just kind of caps how much I can get to.
It feels that way. I mean,
it's also kind of making me think. So like when I crunched lineups before the show, I was just crunching like without randomness to get a feel for what optimal lineups look like. Talking through the slate, it's kind of making me, I still think LeBron is the best pay up option, but like in terms of projection, but it's kind of making me wonder if I end up just playing more Luka, more Murray, and then taking some shots at like Gobert, Nurkic, Pirtle, those type guys.
Okay. I like that. Now, what about Jingles? How about our boy Joe Ingles today? Not exactly someone that we love in the boom bust tool whatsoever, given that he's projected for a lot of ownership, only a 14.7% optimal lineup probability. That's our boom bust tool. You guys want to check that out. Ownership, all that stuff. You can do NBA Live for 25% off the week. NBA Live, all caps, all one word, if you want to get in on that. All sports as well. But is Jingles someone that you want to get to with any frequency today?
Not really at that ownership, I don't think. Like 3,600 is a very cheap price tag for sure, but yep. There's no guarantee, like there's no reason to think he's playing a ton of minutes or anything. He played 21 minutes yesterday. I think on average, he's probably going to play like 24-ish. He's averaged 0.72 DraftKings points per minute for the season. It is a pretty good matchup, and there's a pretty good chance he, gives you an acceptable point per dollar score. But he's just someone that I look at that ownership and say like, okay, I think I can kind of just throw darts at other risky options and probably find somebody that does better than Ingles. So I don't really like him at that ownership. It's another spot where like he's only $600, or I know he is $600 less than Jalen Smith, but I would rather just find ways to get to like a really good point per minute guy like Jalen Smith at half the ownership.
Give me those built-in peripherals with a guy like Jalen Smith
right.
all day long. Yeah. We've got Ingles projected at 25 minutes. I mean, it seems reasonable. Yeah. But look, Smith has 21% usage rate, 21% rebound rate. 4% block rate. I'll take that all day long. And essentially, Adam, you're basically projecting them within a couple minutes of each other anyway. It's not like you're saying Ingles is going to play 32 to 34 minutes. I mean, he could play 24 to 26 minutes and be in the exact same ballpark as Smith.
Right, exactly. Even like on this team, again, it's not the exact same price, right? The exact same price, but $4,300 for Rudy Gay at 8% ownership, or $3,600 for Ingles at 22. I'd rather take shots at Gay. He's just the better fantasy guy.
Anybody else you want to hit on for Utah? Then we can wrap it up with the Lakers.
Oh yeah, one thing I'd forgotten to mention with Gobert, another reason to like him other than the fact that he's just too cheap, is that we do typically see a few more minutes for him when Hassan Whiteside is out. Played 35 yesterday. That's been a trend all season long, is that in competitive games where Whiteside is in, a lot of times you still only get like 33, 34 minutes from Gobert. But in the ones where Whiteside is out, he does typically get a few more minutes.
Okay. Did you want to hit on anything else for the Jazz?
Not really. I mean, well, actually, yeah. Donovan Mitchell at 9K is really fairly priced, I think. He's another guy where, like, if, for example, I'm not going to LeBron at center, if I'm going with a couple cheaper guys, using some of that money to get to Donovan Mitchell makes a lot of sense. I think Jordan Clarkson, always is appealing in tournaments. He's only getting about 12% ownership as well.
All right. How about the Lakers today, Adam? LeBron James, center eligible only, LeBron James on DraftKings, kind of throws a wrench into the works. We broke down that strategy a minute ago, but he's very popular. And then outside of him, you've got just guys like Dwight and Westbrook and Malik Monk and all of those guys that we've kind of mixed in along the way recently. So let's wrap it up with the Lakers.
Yeah, so I mean, LeBron looks great from a projection standpoint. It just comes down to the opportunity cost at center, and can you make higher upside lineups by saving a little bit of money there and paying up elsewhere so that maybe you don't have to play guys like Joe Ingles. But he looks great. I mean, he's been around a 1.6 fantasy point per minute guy without Anthony Davis. I think he looks very good. One thing to keep in mind here is that Carmelo Anthony is questionable. Dwight Howard started last game against Denver. It wouldn't be shocking if he were to start again here and potentially be a decent value. But again, it would just be really difficult to get to him at center.
We had a super chat I just want to hit on because it involves an early game. Blue Duck says McGee or Okongwu on FanDuel, 4,900 and 4,300. Okongwu is 4,300. Yeah,
I would still lean McGee. As long as the $600 doesn't force you to give up too much.
Okay. Anything else for the Lakers, or should we put a bow on it?
No, I mean, I think that's about it. I mentioned Howard, 3,300 if he starts would look decent. Don't really know what they'll do here, but certainly against Gobert, a spot where it wouldn't be surprising if he's in the starting lineup. But beyond that, I don't really have interest in Avery Bradley. Russell Westbrook on FanDuel, I should be mentioned. He's only $8,100. Obviously, their scoring system isn't great for him, and he has his limitations. But $8,100 for Westbrook's a pretty good price tag.
Who's your favorite low-owned option today? It's got to be Smith if he's only 10%. Right?
Yeah, if he's 10%, then I think it kind of has to be Jalen Smith for me.
Okay, and I think Suggs is another guy you like that's not super high owned.
Yeah.
Favorite value play not named McGee if it isn't Smith, because it's not Ingles, right?
Yeah, I mean, Ingles is one of those where
he's fine.
Yeah, he's fine. It's so hard for him to put up a score that you actually have to have. So favorite value outside of McGee,
why not?
Yeah, I just want to see what I don't have an answer off the top of my head, but
that's fine.
I kind of like Trey Mann at 3K. Again, I'm not excited about him, but he's getting half the ownership of Ingles. Keldon Johnson at 5,100. I really liked if we're counting him as value.
All right. That'll do it for us. Stick around. Still waiting on some news. That's what Josh and Greg got you for. Taking your questions, breaking this slate down to take you up to tip. And then you got Eric and the Mats last NFL live before lock Monday night of the year. And get in on that super wild promo. It's $1 for the entire week. That'll get you 5 separate showdown slates, plus all of our tiers, content, and tools, and a lot more. So awesemo.com/promos. Appreciate you guys. As always, we'll catch you back here for the next deeper dive. Happy Martin Luther King Day. We'll see you soon. Peace.
Yeah, have you tried to take one up the back door of those things? I bet the nicotine gets into the stream like you wouldn't believe. And we are live. Welcome to NBA Live Before Lock. It is Monday, January 17th. I'm Josh Engleman. I'm joined by Greg Ehrenberg. And honestly, we probably could have played the first show that we did today, and it would have took like 5 or 10 minutes before people realized we were talking about something different. Either way, 472 likes. Not a bad job there, Lofty. Congratulations on that one. Let's see if we could run that number up a little bit further. Hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Shout out to Yahoo for being the sponsor. We'll definitely talk about them in a bit. But first, Greg, how has it been since 5 hours ago or whenever the hell we stopped talking?
So you're forgetting, though, we talked about the first 6 games earlier. Now we're going to be talking about the last 5 games. The one game in Milwaukee, Atlanta is already locked for FanDuel purposes, but this is a fresh slate for us. We're getting to talk 2 different NBA slates.
Lucky us on a day like today, because we were so blessed to be able to talk about that steaming pile of garbage that went off for the first 6 games of the slate. We're already down 1 game for the main because FanDuel has already locked. We're on to DraftKings 5-gamer. Obviously, I guess if you're playing like FanDuel night slates or something, this could be interesting. The good news is we don't have to really talk about FanDuel at all.
Not really. I mean, I have my builds here and we'll go over it. And certainly if people have questions, we'll be answering it. But it's so different looking at the FanDuel slate versus the DraftKings slate because, you know, players like Giannis is on FanDuel, not on DK, which obviously makes a massive difference for that game that's already started.
So it seems like we could actually follow the normal blueprint. Nick Nurse remains questionable, still a game time call. Scotty Barnes will play. Don't really know what to do that. Did you see the quote from, I mean, obviously, I'm sure you did. Did you see the quote from Chauncey Billups about CJ?
About him playing limited minutes?
Sort of. Coach Billups says CJ McCollum will be on a minutes restriction tonight. We'll see if I stick to it. He's had enough rest.
I just saw the minutes restriction. I didn't catch that part of it. Yeah. But It's reasonable to think he's going to have some sort of minutes restriction. He had a collapsed lung, which seems somewhat significant when it comes to Cardi running up and down the NBA court. And it's been a month since we last saw him play. I understand the team is somewhat in dire straits considering where they are in the standings and Damian Lillard potentially not playing for the rest of the season. But at the same time, the bottom of the Western Conference is terrible. So the Blazers are still in the playoff mix. But I think we have to assume some sort of minutes restriction for McCollum that's going to make it so it's difficult to roster him, but enough that it takes away from the other guys we care about from Portland.
Let's go ahead and dive in. We can talk about the guards to start. I don't know what it is, and I'm probably going to regret what I'm going to say, but I think this show is going to be relatively tame. Am I crazy?
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is, particularly for the DraftKings slate, on a 5-game slate, you would typically expect there to be some massive chalk plays. With JaVale McGee as one. Nobody else is projected for over 25% ownership right now, which is kind of bizarre for a 5-game slate.
Well, let's dive into it. Who is your favorite guard on the slate for today?
Yeah, so you and I briefly talked about this before, but it is Joe Ingles for me. And one thing that gives me a little bit of an uncomfortable feeling is that Mike Conley's not listed on the Utah Jazz injury report. Now, at the same time, Mike Conley does not play in back-to-backs. He almost always rests him. There's been times here and there that Utah has played him in back-to-backs. In general, though, it's not something he does. So my assumption is that Mike Conley does not play today. I don't have him in my projections. I know over on Awesemo.com, we do have him in the projections there, which I don't think that's wrong either because he hasn't listed on the injury report. But for me personally, I don't have Conley playing, and that means Joe Ingles starts. And while Joe Ingles hasn't been the best fantasy producer this season relative to other years, there's not all that much value on the slate, particularly at the guard position. He's really cheap at 3,600 guard and forward eligibility, so he's easy to slot in. At 3,600, I do think he's a really strong points per dollar play. And I think the only reason he isn't more popular is because people are unsure what's going to happen with Conley.
Yeah, I think he looks pretty good. I have him basically neutrally owned as far as like sub 4K type plays on DK. He's, I think, pretty clearly the best one that you can get to. So no qualms at all going to Ingles. I do want to hit on these two super chats we got just because they came from the same person. Adam Palmer with the first one just said, "Let's go, boys. Good luck tonight, all." I agree. So thank you for that one. You followed up with a question, and this one's got a pretty easy answer. Am I crazy for having 100% Grayson Allen today? Yes. Do you want to take this one or should I?
Well, here's the easy way to answer it. That game has already started. Let me just see what he's done in the first 10 minutes of the game. If he's off to, and you can't make any changes at this point. That game is already locked. Yeah. 0 points scored. So we're only 5 seconds into the game. No fantasy points scored. Yes. Crazy. Unless you're playing one lineup, then you didn't really have a lot of choice. But yeah, if you played a bunch of lineups and you 100% Grayson Allen, certified crazy.
Showed up in 4% of my sims. So unless I'm playing one lineup, if I would have had more than one, that would have been a bit of an issue. The other chalk guard on DraftKings for right now, I guess I can't even say just other, because there's a pack of like 6 dudes at the top. They're all basically similarly owned, but Cole Anthony at the top, Devin Booker, Luka Doncic, we'll say DeJounte Murray, Donovan Mitchell, Chris Paul. These are all the guys in like 19 to 24% owned. For all intents and purposes, that's basically the same ownership. Do you think anybody looks bad in that group?
I wouldn't say bad, but DeJounte Murray, to me, there's other guys I'd rather pay up for. I'd rather get to Luka on high end. I'd rather get to LeBron. And then something else to consider also with DeJounte Murray, Derek White's back and is assumingly not going to have a minutes restriction. So I like DeJounte Murray a lot when Derek White was out. Derek White is now longer not out. And there's also other guys that were out for the Spurs. Jakob Poeltl was out for a period of time. We had Keldon Johnson was out, amongst other players. Now we've got all these guys back. Murray has been priced up a little bit from when those guys were out, and it's just not quite the same role. So it's not that I look at him and say bad. I don't think that's really the right phrasing for it, but I'm slightly underweight to the field on him, and there's other guys I'm preferring to pay up for.
Yeah, I feel like I kind of have the same feel for Booker. Better price tag, obviously, than DeJounte Murray, but I feel like he's picking up a little bit more ownership than I totally would want to get to. Not that I think he's a problem or anything, but I just think he's the least interesting piece of all those guys that are getting about 20%. To me, the most interesting guy that's getting all that ownership is Donovan Mitchell, 9K. Certainly has a better price on FanDuel where it's 8,200, but that doesn't really matter any longer unless you want to late swap to him. But he's the guy that I'm most interested in. He's the guy that I actually have grading out the best overall. I mean, I get relative to salary for sure, but he's the guy I want the most out of anybody at the top that's pulling any ownership.
I have no disagreement with that other than I hope Mike Conley doesn't play because once again, it's another one of these situations where if Conley plays, that would decrease what my projection is for Donovan Mitchell. And you look at Mitchell this year, you take Conley off the court, 34.3% usage rate. He scores a little over 45 fantasy points per 36 minutes. But some of those numbers kind of go by the wayside if Conley's in. So then all of a sudden we'd have this situation where I'm going to have to project Donovan Mitchell for a couple less fantasy points and no way to swap in that situation because that game starts at 10:30 Eastern time. There's just no game that starts anywhere near that. The next game is within the 2-hour start time. So I hope we get the Conley news sometime in advance because just to reiterate what I said before, I don't think Conley's going to play, but he's not listed on the injury report.
I mean, whether he's in or out, that one really wouldn't matter too much to me. I mean, Donovan Mitchell's got a ceiling whether Conley's playing or not. Clearly, you want more Donovan Mitchell on days where he is not playing, but that one wouldn't stress me out all that much. Pace up spot against the Lakers, bad Lakers defense. I like the recipe of success for Donovan Mitchell. He should be able to blast past whoever's trying to guard him. So go Donovan Mitchell. Anybody slipping through the cracks today? Anybody a bit more low owned than you were expecting? Because I got a couple guys that I'm a little surprised for pulling low ownership, but I'm curious where you land.
Yeah, let me sort by guard and see which guys that I am overweight to. Maybe not surprising, but I think Campaign is a pretty good GPP play for cheap on this slate. So we've seen Campaign finally start to make some shots, which he was not doing at all earlier in the season. And something else, his minutes have started to come up. Last 2 games, he's played 24 and 31 minutes. Not picking up that much ownership, cheap price point on a slate where it's kind of hard to find value. So he's somebody I think is going a little bit underrepresented.
Do you think he gets a major effect with Cam Johnson coming back in? Do you think those minutes go back down to the 20 to 22 range?
Not really, just because Eytan is out. And I think that means that there's more opportunity for the Suns to play some small ball lineups. I know that they still have JaVale McGee in there. They have Jalen Smith, but it's not like they were super high on Jalen Smith. They played him big minutes when they had to. But don't forget at the same time, too, they didn't pick up his third-year rookie option, which is something that's only happened 3 times in the last 15 years, ironically, all by the Suns. First-round picks, it was Jalen Smith, Kendall Marshall, and Earl Clark are the 3 names. So it's not like the Suns are really high on Jalen Smith. I don't think he's guaranteed to play big minutes, and I think there is opportunity for the Suns to play more small ball. And considering how well Campaign is played, I certainly wouldn't consider him in a cash game, but for tournaments, I think there's upside.
I'd be very surprised if the Suns played a single second of small ball today. So we're in disagreement here. Yeah. Now that they have 3 centers, I have a hard time believing that Bridges plays anything at the 5 against the Spurs with Pirtle available. It wouldn't be crazy to me. Like, I mean, the Suns are a really good basketball team, and I expect them to do whatever they think is going to give them the best chance to win. So Bridges going to the 5, or whoever we want to call the 5 that isn't one of the centers, like, by all means, do it. It's Phoenix. I trust them. It would surprise me if they did. I think they're more likely to play more than 48 total minutes to McGee, Biyombo, and Smith than they are to play less.
Possible. It's kind of weird to me that they guaranteed Biyombo's contract for the rest of the season and then just kind of stopped playing him after that. But that aside, I think it's certainly reasonable to think that they're going to play just traditional big lineups. But I like Campaign just from the standpoint of I think it's possible that they play more small ball, and he's kind of underrepresented.
I assume that they're trading Jalen Smith at the deadline, and that's why they guaranteed Biyombo at the time.
Could be.
Just there's no incentive to keep his $4.5 million on the books. I think wouldn't surprise me at all to see Jalen Smith be an Oklahoma City Thunder basketball player at the end of the trade deadline.
Jalen Smith, like a protected 2nd-round pick, seems very well within the range of outcomes.
Because I assume Phoenix is in the tax. I have no reason to suspect otherwise, given Booker's contract, given Chris Paul's contract. I assume that they're in the tax right now. Assuming they are in the tax, getting off of Jalen Smith's money for what amounts to nothing is going to save them a lot more than the $4.5 million too. So
yeah, save like 15 million or something ridiculous. Yeah,
getting off of that for a guy that is not going to be back unless you give him basically the same contract he was going to get last year. Like, yikes. What a regretful pick.
One, by the way, getting back to your question from before, I'm not sure. Like somebody I'm a little bit overweight's field on also is Derek White. Not like crazy overweight, but Derek White's been somebody who I like quite a bit this year. And now we're seeing him also pretty reasonable price tag at 6,500. Don't forget, he was over 7K not all that long ago. And I know that DeJounte Murray's back in the mix, but we've seen him play well at times alongside Murray this year. Some of the numbers at the beginning of the season, White got off to a slow start, but he's played much better over the last month and a half or so. He's another guy in the mid-range that I think warrants being overweight to the field on.
We got another super chat from Adam Palmer that said Grayson Allen for the bucket. So it looks like he's on the board at the very least.
Let's
best
see,
of luck to you on the rest of that journey.
Now I think we should just be, Grayson Allen. Oh, my 6 real life points in 5 minutes. Grayson Allen is on fire.
That's actually
2 for 2 from 3.
That'll work. All right, I'm going to hit you with a couple of names. Just tell me like, dislike, whatever. This is all relative to expected ownership. I'm not saying these guys are lock button guys or whatever, but I think they're a bit underowned. Malik Monk, 5,900. Russell Westbrook, 9,400. Jordan Clarkson, 5,600. Obvious caveat on Jordan Clarkson right now. And this one I don't like seeing. $4,700 Terrence Ross. Anything there for you?
No on Terrence Ross.
Fair.
The other guys, though, I'm trying to remember all of them off the top of my head.
Clarkson, I'm sure you have nothing to add to.
No, Clarkson, it's the same thing we've said about all of those, about all those other guys. Monk for me is going to depend on if Carmelo Anthony is ruled in or out. It just opens up a little bit more possibility in terms of usage and security with Malik Monk's minutes. Are you assuming that Melo sits, plays, or unsure?
I have Melo in for right now.
Okay.
Obviously, I would not be mad if he ended up out. That's just going to make things better for Malik Monk. But not that I'm super excited to ever go to Malik Monk, but he's playing 30 plus minutes, generally speaking. I know it has been a little bit lighter over these last 3, 2 of which weren't with Melo, but I got him in for 30. Happy to take that shot. Don't love it, but value's not exactly, we're not dripping in value at this point in time. Don't mind the price tag. The other guy was his teammate, Russell Westbrook, 11% owned right now.
Yeah, I mean, there's always upside in Russell Westbrook. I think he's about appropriately owned, though there's other guards that I prefer and other pay up options I prefer today. So Russell Westbrook is not priority play for me, but I don't think it's a terrible option.
It pains me to say it. I think it's a good matchup for him.
I don't think there are a good matchup for Russell Westbrook at this point.
Obviously, what I'm about to say has nothing to do with this current Lakers team. The past 6 games that he's played against Utah, 69, 82, 50, 55, 54, and 82. That goes back to 2019 on very different teams and very different play styles. But they're so bad at point of attack defense that I think that benefits him to at least get himself into a position where maybe he can finish over Rudy Gobert, but they're so bad at defending the perimeter that I'm hoping that just goes well for Russ. Look, I like him in GPPs. That's all. On FanDuel, I actually legitimately like him at 8,100. That's different.
It's hard to know what to do with him from this sense. Number one is he appears to be pretty dramatically on the decline. The fit is also kind of wonky with the Lakers. Yeah. Also, if you look at his box score, the upside hasn't been there, but the Lakers just don't play in very many competitive games. They really get blown out a lot, this Lakers team. And then even some of their wins are not really particularly close. So they're on a 3-game losing streak, and 2 of those 3 losses were not remotely competitive. But then their last win was against Atlanta. They beat them by 16 at home, and the starters played limited minutes also. So it's really hard to know what to make of some of the production from these guys. It's been nearly a month since Westbrook scored over 50 fantasy points, but there's still Anthony.
So he's due?
Yeah, he's due or he's bad. It's one of the two, but eventually the Lakers are going to play in a competitive game where the starters are going to play more, normal minutes.
I think the most interesting piece of all of this is probably just that he's affected by LeBron. The assist rate's down and the rebounding rate's down, but all of his shooting percentages are basically the same as they were last year. 50% true shooting to 51, 47% effective field goal percentage in both seasons. I bet there's a lot of people out there that would wildly overestimate his 2021 stats.
Yeah, and also his 2021 was weird too, because he played with, and by the way, credit to him, he had a torn quad that the team doctors, if I remember correctly, they said that he should not be playing. And he was like, screw you guys, I'm toughing it out, I'm playing. And he just sucked for the first couple months of the season. He was really good for the Wizards down the stretch of the season once he was healthy. So it was really, like, his numbers didn't represent who he was, because for half the season, he was considerably worse than that. And then for the other half of the season, he was much better. And it's easy to forget because of how much of a fantasy study was down the stretch last year. He didn't even make the All-Star game last year, and it wasn't considered a snub or anything. Everybody's just like, yeah, of course, Russell Westbrook shouldn't make the All-Star game. Same way we're going to feel about him this year. But if you just looked at his second half of the year, it would have seemed crazy they didn't make the All-Star game.
Yeah, it's crazy. If you flip-flop them, he's an obvious All-Star. And then he has a really bad stretch. If you look at it in the aggregate, 2022 makes perfect sense. It's crazy. Like, what a weird stretch of 12 months for Russell Westbrook. Well, there's your Russell Westbrook section of the show, what everybody expected to get today. Anything else you want to touch on from some of the guards? Any priorities you're looking at? Anybody you just definitely want to talk about?
We should talk about Cole Anthony. He's going to be popular, but also for good reason. Do you have any concerns with Jalen Suggs coming back and starting to play more minutes now, presumably? I don't, but I understand if somebody else was going to be concerned about that. I like Cole Anthony quite a bit today.
He's my second favorite guard today. I wouldn't say that I have concerns. I think the long-term goal is just going to be like those two guys are playing together, and they are the guys that are taking the most shots no matter what, because I don't get the sense they really want them to go to Gary Harris or anybody else really, other than maybe Franz Wagner. And he's kind of a different beast to begin with. Well, yeah, but he's not playing.
Yeah. I
I'm going to go with the guys that are on the court today too. Yeah. I'm going to count Dwight Howard and Rashard Lewis, and we'll go with Penny. I want all those guys to take shots over these guys too. Yeah. I mean, when Fultz comes back, shots when it comes to Fultz. Let's see how that's looking after a year.
I like Fultz.
I want to like Fultz. That's an interesting 3-guard rotation, though.
He was starting to play well before he got hurt last year.
He was starting to play like he didn't forget how to play basketball, which I guess is a pretty big step from having to tap the ball on the way up to shoot free throws, which is
what kind of mental torture do they do to players in Philly, where Ben Simmons is like, whatever, I'll never play basketball again. Markelle Fultz is like, I don't remember how to shoot a basketball. And it's always Philly. It doesn't seem to happen in other spots.
That's the cheesesteaks, man. It's that there must be something in the whiz.
I think it's the fans berating players.
Yeah, that seems pretty reasonable. Yeah, I don't get the sense that they're really fond of anything over there.
It's Laufey, it's producer Mike with his Eagles apparel.
Yeah,
just making players feel bad.
Alrighty, hit that like button, everybody, if you can. NFL Live Before Lock coming up after this one. We still have one more NFL game to go in this first round of the postseason. NBA player projections and NHL player projections are both free. Eytan Jones flying in with the super chat. Oh, Adam Palmer hit one again, too. So, Adam Palmer, does Dwight Howard look good if he is in? I would say that he doesn't look bad if he is in.
Well,
I don't think he's good.
He's probable, so we could safely assume that he's going to end up playing. I have 5% exposure to Dwight Howard now. Does that make he's certainly playable, but I don't know if good is the word I would go with.
I would say that he is over-owned at 11% if that ownership mark is still there. And if we're just talking in general, I would prefer getting to Jalen Smith at similar ownership over Dwight. I would clearly prefer getting to JaVale McGee before I get to Dwight. So, like, again, is there a problem with him? No. Is it a priority? Not close to me.
Yeah, I think that's where, like I said, I have 5% exposure to him in the player pool. Very far from a priority.
Eytan Jones wants to know Suggs and Cam Johnson or Bamba and Crowder. And I would say neither.
Yeah, that is neither for me. I mean, the other thing too is so Cam Johnson coming back from an injury, he's probable. Bamba's minutes have been all weird as of late. Crowder's going to be impacted by Cam Johnson coming back. Jalen Suggs, he's also, you've got so many guys here who've got weird question marks because of injury situations. Yeah, it's just neither.
I wouldn't play Cam Johnson at all today. And Mo Bamba coming off the bench is like another guy that I'm not all that interested in playing. So I would go back to the drawing board.
Yeah, it's neither. I hate to tell people to do that, but throw everything in the garbage.
I mean, I don't hate to do that. Like, if you want the answer to the question, you're going to get the answer to the question. The last thing that I want to do is be like, well, I'll pick between the two things you're giving me, but I actually don't like either. Like, it's disingenuous to me. I think we're doing the right thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair too. But that is, it's a bunch of players I don't like. That nothing better than it. Here are the 2v2s where I don't like any of the players, or the 3v3 where there's one player who's the same in both sides.
Like, I only kind of like Suggs as a GPP play there. I don't have a ton of it. Like, I don't feel confident at all in Cam Johnson or Crowder. And I mean, if Bamba were starting, very different scenario at 5,600. With him coming off the bench, I think he's just sort of capped in general.
I do of those play. If I could only roster one of those players in that combination, it would be Jalen Suggs. 22 minutes in his first game back from injury, 24 minutes in the next game. So it does seem like they're ramping up a little bit, but also keep in mind he wasn't playing especially well earlier in the season before he got hurt. But the price is down. I think that he's a viable GPP play, which is more than I could say about the other guys there.
Chad Thiel with the membership message for today. I've been a member for 2 months. Franz Wagner or Keldon Johnson in a DK double up. I think that one's pretty easy for me, but it's close.
Let me look at it. Off the top of my head, it's Keldon, but let me check where these guys are at.
I have it as Keldon as well, but it is pretty close. I just prefer that $600.
Yeah. So if I have more exposure to Keldon Johnson than I do to Franz Wagner today. However, if this is just a thing where you're looking for somebody to play in a utility spot and salary does not matter, I have Wagner projected for more fantasy points, but only very, very slightly more. So the $600 is getting me to Keldon Johnson a lot more. So it just depends what the opportunity cost is, what you're doing with that money. If the money isn't of any issue, it's Wagner, but more often than not, Keldon Johnson there.
Bam Adebayo officially cleared. Will play today. All right. Daryl Jones says, if we Philly fans go hard for you, do the same for us.
Oh, it's definitely the Philly fans that are screwing up their players. That confirms it for me.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. As someone that lived in Eastern Pennsylvania for the first 25 years of his life, I've seen a lot of Philly fan garbage. Quick to take a dump on someone not playing particularly well. That's for sure.
Yeah,
I mean, hated Donovan McNabb with a raging passion. Went to 4 straight NFC title games.
Or just taking a dump on other people that are sitting in the stands nearby them. And anything flies when it's Philly. By the way, now that Bam Adebayo is in, and we knew that we assumed he was going to be, and he went through shoot arounds and all that. Yes. Do you think he's going to have some sort of harsh minutes restriction? Because it's not like he was coming off a leg. Like, this was a thumb injury. I think there's a chance he plays kind of close to full minutes.
I tried to be a little bit more pedestrian about it just because there's no advantage to being like, hey, Bam, go play 36 in your first game back and get a feel. I think that Yurt7 has been a bit of a revelation for them too. Or, if you want to say that it's still Dedmon, go for it. Or PJ Tucker at the 4. Like, they have so many potential options to go play at center that I tried to be a little bit more muted with his minutes. I gave him 28. I think upwards of 30 or 32 makes some sense. I couldn't go to 34, 35 where he was earlier. Wouldn't surprise me because, this is just a cardio thing, but for how long he was out, Miami's got bigger fish to fry than like winning a random game in the middle of the year here. They're playing the long game. If those 3 guys are healthy when they get to the playoffs, they're a legitimate title contender. So I try to err on the side of caution for this one. I honestly don't know, though. I'm making it all up as I go.
Yeah, just one thing, because I'm kind of looking through now, refresh the ownership page, see where Bam Adebayo was. He's projected for 1% ownership. And there's a part of me that just thinks, because I don't have any exposure to Bam Adebayo right now. And there's a part of me that thinks, all right, he's confirmed in. This is a thumb injury. He's not coming off a hamstring injury. This isn't a knee injury. And I don't know. I feel kind of inclined to take shots at him when he's 3% on FanDuel and 1 or 2% on DK.
Makes more sense to me. I assume in these situations, and I don't mean like we in general, but like any sort of generic modeling system is going to miss low on someone like Bam on a day like today because he just has more name cachet. If people know he's back, I think people are just more likely to click on him. So I assume he comes in like the 3, 4, 5% range and not just fully unowned, at which point I think he's like properly owned. That's the right amount of flyers to me.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And I don't even know. I gave him a couple extra minutes just so maybe I would get to a couple lines with him. I have none with him right now, but I would kind of like to get to like 5% or something.
But none's on the Lakers now.
Ugh, that's bad, Joe. That is very Eric of you.
I'm not happy about it. I
Eric of you.
I hated the words that were coming out of my mouth as they came out of my mouth. So let's switch this up. Who are your?
I wish your microphone
forwards?
exploded when you said that.
Who are your favorite forwards for today?
All right, we could talk about forwards. So Joe Ingles also has forward eligibility, so he's going to fit in there. We might as well talk about Keldon Johnson here because we just got a question about him.
Yeah,
Keldon Johnson, his minutes have looked better as of late, over 30 minutes in each of the last 2 games. He was coming off of COVID. He came back. He played restricted, limited minutes. I wouldn't read too much into him only playing 24 minutes that first game back. Here's what is important to me, though. It looks like the pricing algorithms way overreacted to him playing limited minutes in that first game and something that just isn't relevant to us anymore. He went from being priced pretty regularly, high 5K, low 6K range, down to 5,100. I really like Keldon Johnson. He's my favorite value play forward.
I agree. Number one in my sims. Ownership doesn't look problematic. Seems really, really easy to get to. A little annoying. I believe he's only power forward eligible, just going off the top of my head here, but I remember seeing that earlier today. Otherwise, love it. Happy to get to Keldon Johnson. I think Ingles, as we already mentioned, looks good. I'm half shit on him before, but I don't mind Franz Wagner at 5,700. And then the guy that I think is getting slept on the most at forward, give me some $8,900 Jimmy Butler. I don't care that Bam's back if Lowry's still out. Like, to me, that's the same situation. I want $8,900 Jimmy Butler.
I don't have an issue with that. There are some higher priority pay up options for me that we've talked about, and like Doncic is a higher priority for me. Porzingis is a higher priority to me as well. Porzingis right now I've projected for 3% ownership on FanDuel. On DK, Porzingis is at a little healthier, 23.6% ownership, but still, he's a pretty high priority for me today, Porzingis. I don't think we have to worry about any kind of minutes restriction at this point, now that he has a game underneath his belt, and he's just a little bit underpriced.
How many minutes are you expecting for Kristaps Porzingis today? Because I greatly prefer Jimmy Butler today.
Let's see. I gave Porzingis 30.
So did I. I prefer Jimmy Butler by quite a bit. I have Jimmy Butler projected better than Kristaps Porzingis by 6.5 points.
I have Butler projected better, which that's obviously not shocking, but Porzingis is also so much cheaper.
I have Jimmy Butler as a better point per dollar play as well, if that helps.
Yeah, I do not. I have Butler 2.5 points better than Porzingis.
Okay.
But he's $1,000 more expensive.
Sign me up for Butler. I'm right here. Best I can do. Anybody you don't like? Any negative leverage plays? Somebody that you're like, why is that ownership coming in that way?
Let's see. So the most rostered forwards right now, Nasir Little. So, and the opportunity for Nasir Little is just totally different than what it was a few games ago. The big CJ McCollum is back, and we had these situations with the Portland Trailblazers. Just everybody was out. And over the course of the year, it's not like Nasir Little is some terrific fantasy producer. And I think he's a little bit overpriced with where he's at right now. And we don't know exactly what CJ McCollum's minutes are going to look like. You said before, he got that weird quote from Chauncey Billups, like, hey, he's on a restriction, but who knows? Who knows what I'm going to do? Like he's some trickster or something. But I think that we're looking at Nasir Little. He's kind of picking up ownership as if some of these guys are still out. So there's more opportunity than normal just because Norman Powell remains out, but I don't think he warrants being one of the most popular forwards on the slate. The only guys picking up more ownership than Nasir Little are Porzingis and Keldon Johnson. I don't think he should be the third most popular forward today.
I agree. I don't like it. I don't agree with it at all. I agree with you, not the current ownership. Yeah. I would like to be well under the field on Nasir Little. So same page completely. I'm surprised that he has more ownership than Franz Wagner, even at $500 cheaper. I prefer Wagner.
Yeah, I strongly prefer Wagner to Nasir Little. I have I have Wagner projected for 4 more fantasy points, and he's only $500 more expensive. So yeah, Wagner over a little if you have the salary cap for it all day from between the two.
All right, I'm going to hit you with a couple of I think these guys are under-owned. You let me know what you think, all right? Chuma Okeke, Josh Giddey, Devin Vassell, Royce O'Neal. Shit, I'll give you one more. Scotty Barnes, 6,300. Any of those guys jump out for you?
So the one I'm going to disagree with is Vassell, just because the matchup against the Suns is less than ideal. And we have these guys coming back from the Spurs. It just kind of makes it hard for me to give him the minutes confidently, because this Spurs team too, first of all, Popovich's rotations, we all know that they're difficult to predict. And there were games where everybody was out for the Spurs and Vassell still didn't get the minutes. And somebody who's back for the Spurs that probably makes more of a difference than he should is Doug McDermott. I think that he's somebody who, when he missed time, that was something that led to more minutes for Vassell. But it's a pretty deep team of guys that are somewhat similar. And I just I can't confidently say that Pop is going to give Vassell minutes over McDermott or Lonnie Walker, Keita Bates-Diop, or, Bryn Forbes going to end up playing more minutes. There's so many guys for them to go to. So Vassell isn't somebody that I'm on personally.
28 and 31 over his past two. This last one, no Bryn Forbes. Was Bryn Forbes just out 2 nights ago? Do you know? Or was that a DNP?
Let's see. Bryn Forbes was out of the rotation last game.
Yeah. Do you know if
randomly? Okay. No reason. So and by the way, playing big minutes out of the rotation. This wasn't and playing 2 of his better games of the season and to out of the rotation. So Bryn Forbes against the Houston Rockets plays 32 minutes, scores 21 real life points, knocks down 6 threes, follows it up in only 17 minutes, scores 15 real life points against a pretty difficult against a pretty good Cleveland Cavaliers defense. And then Popovich is just like, no more Bryn Forbes. I assume he's going to be back in the rotation today, just because he has played well as of late and he's been playing a considerable amount of minutes. And last game, he just wasn't there for whatever reason.
I actually left him out. Scares me a little bit. Don't really know what they're going to do with the rotation. Josh Primo's back with the G League again. So we'll see what happens there. I gave Walker 24 minutes. Really, when push comes to shove, and I probably spent too much time here. Shooting guard, small forward, 4,400. I just like that combination of price and positional flexibility on DK. And I think that's why he's popping a little bit more than what do we have? 5% ownership on him or something like that. 9% ownership.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at. Nothing too crazy.
I do have some exposure to Doug McDermott, though. Not that I feel good about it, but I'm overweight to the field on McDermott. I know the minutes also for him have not been there lately, but I don't view him as being that much different from Vassell. McDermott is starting. The minutes are really erratic. He's just cheap on a slate that it's kind of hard to find players to roster.
He's been so bad from a DFS perspective this year.
Yeah,
0.73 is where I have him in the model. 0.68 over the past 30 days. That said, I like him more than our current ownership projection. So I guess I'm with you there. I just have him a little bit lower than Vassell by the time, I would have got to him eventually if I kept reading off names.
Yeah, fair enough. If I'm playing a crappy Spurs guy that I have minimal confidence in, it's going to be McDermott just because of the price point.
Fair. Any other forwards that you want to touch on for today?
Yeah, so here's a flyer. Josh Green, I have some exposure to it. Literally no ownership. Also, I'm more inclined to take shots on this slate than I would on other slates, just because it's 5 games and there aren't that many value plays to like. If we're talking about Joe Ingles as being one of our favorite value plays on the slate, we don't even know if Conley is going to be in or out. We're just kind of speculating that we assume Conley's going to be out. I'm just more apt to take some roles, just take some home run swings, and Josh Green's one of them for me. We've seen him spike some upside as of late. Last game, he did play 25 minutes. The fantasy production wasn't there, but there have been some of these games where we've seen him get a little bit over 20 minutes and score a bunch of fantasy points in a hurry. So Josh Green is somebody who I think does have some talent, and he's less than 1% owned. So I'm in 5% of my lineups.
Let's see where I have him here. How many minutes did you give him?
Let's see. Josh Green. I'm sure it's not a lot. It's probably high teens. I'm pulling up the Mavericks. 18 minutes.
Okay. I actually gave him more than that. I have him in at 21, so I assume you'd really like him at 21. I like him significantly more than the current ownership. Would be a guy that I would get to from a flyer perspective. Showed up in 6% of my sims, so I like that shout.
For the season, 12 minutes per game, 9.5 fantasy points. So once again, it's not like we're talking about some terrific fantasy producer, but even projecting him for, like 16, 17 fantasy points, it makes him somebody I get to.
Any other forwards you want to touch on?
Let's see. I think we've talked about a lot of the chalk guys. I think Ingles is solid. Keldon Johnson, Kristaps Porzingis. Dorian Finney-Smith, also somebody else that I think warrants exposure and is going a little bit underrepresented. He is currently projected for 16% ownership. And he's somebody who I think I feel better about his minutes than a lot of the other guys around this price range. So we look at the recent run for DFS. Take last game out of the equation because that was a blowout, but other games, 32 minutes, 34, 30. By the way, a lot of blowouts, actually. Now I'm looking through some of the Mavericks' recent games. 6 of their last 7 games have been decided by at least 15 points, or at least by at least 14 points. So that makes it a little wonky projecting minutes. But either way, Dorian Finney-Smith is going to start for the Mavericks, and just cheap price point. I think that he's somebody who probably warrants being a little bit over 20% owned as opposed to where he's at.
All right. I think we could probably pack it in on the forward section for right now. Let's touch a little bit on the presenting sponsor of this show. That would be Yahoo Fantasy Sports. Peep the banner at the top of the screen, awesemo.com/Yahoo-promo. Get a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. Get some extra site credit if you sign up using that link. You got to be new to Yahoo. Sign up using the link either that I just spoke out or find the description of this video. Click it, deposit, play. That's it. Yahoo will send us your name after you play in your first paid contest. We will then reach out to you with a coupon code for awesemo.com. We've got the NBA $50,000 baller tonight. We've also got the NFL $150,000 Monday night baller going off tonight. You could use our DFS tools and projections designed specifically for Yahoo to give yourself the best shot at winning. Or if that's not your cup of tea, because you just want to get in, Super Wild is the promo code. Last day that you can use it. Honestly, you can use it for basically like an hour and a half now. Otherwise, it's not going to be as interesting for you. This is why it's awesome. It's $1 for an Express Weekly Pass, NFL Express Weekly Pass. That gives you access to our rankings and our ownership rankings, our player rankings for normal contests. It also gives you access to everything that we have for our showdown/single game contest. So that's projections, ownership, and our top plays tool for all NFL showdown single game contests for the next week. That's big stuff when it comes to NFL weekends, particularly in the playoffs. So if you use Super Wild, you can get that for $1. Expires today. If you don't use it today, you will never hear this read again. To center we go. Closing it out now with the big men. Let's have the conversation. How do you feel about 53% owned JaVale McGee today?
I'm behind it.
He scares me.
Yeah, I mean, I understand why he would, but he's such a good fantasy producer. And so last game, not a competitive game. DeAndre Ayton gets hurt during the game. JaVale McGee plays 15 minutes, scores 29 fantasy points. He is such a good fantasy producer that you don't have to project him for that many minutes to look really good on a points per dollar basis. So it's a chalk play that I'm personally going to be riding with.
If I'm playing on DraftKings today, I'm putting Bismack Biyombo in every lineup instead of JaVale McGee.
Every lineup.
Until I get to 8:29 p.m. tonight or whatever time they announce the starters. Bismack Biyombo is $100 more expensive, and DraftKings sucks when you want to make a late swap. If they name Biyombo the starter and you have JaVale McGee, you actually have to go in and massage this. If you just start with Biyombo, eat that $100 no matter what, it's a lot easier to drop down to JaVale than to do the opposite. Scares me. I don't want to I would rather just cover my bases. I assume JaVale starts. I assume he's a fantastic play, but on the off chance that he's not, that is not a fun swap to make at 8:15.
No, and I mean, it's still one that I don't think is going to be too difficult to do from the standpoint of I'm assuming that Mike Conley is out right now. As a result, I have a lot of exposure to Jazz guys. We're going to talk about other centers. I have exposure to Rudy Gobert. We talked about Donovan Mitchell, Joe Ingles, Jordan Clarkson. I don't think I'm going to find it difficult to find the flexibility to make swaps just because of how much Utah exposure I have.
If JaVale McGee doesn't start, how much do you want to have?
almost none at that point, just based on ownership. I would still project him fairly well, but just under the assumption that JaVale McGee would be like 50% owned and we'd get Biyombo at 5 or something like that. That's something that would really make me want to get to Biyombo in that situation. It's not what I think happens, but I do hear what you're saying, and I think it's a possibility. But right now, I'm building my lineups as if JaVale McGee is the starter.
Yeah, I'm going with the assumption that JaVale is the starter as well. I think the minutes could be anywhere from like 18 to 26. I feel pretty much the same way about Jalen Smith. I definitely don't have Bismack Biyombo for projected for all that many minutes. I also wouldn't be surprised if he played like 16. They have so many different options here. It just feels like JaVale's the best. He's clearly a fantastic point per dollar play, and you're going with JaVale McGee from a cash perspective, almost assuredly. I can't imagine building a cash lineup without him. If I'm playing a bunch of lineups, though, I'm just going to treat Biyombo like he's the guy, just to make my life easier for that extra 100. If something happens and that news comes in hella late, I want to be able to do quick player replace Biyombo to JaVale until DraftKings wakes up and allows you to do that kind of swap, even if you still have that extra $100.
Yep. Hey, I get it. And I would be building my lineups differently if I didn't already have a lot of Jazz exposure.
Yep, that's fair. If this game were later too, like if that happened to be the only game at 10:30, I'm 100% doing what I'm saying. When it's at 8:30 and you've got 3, like you should have a bunch of extra pieces if you're like using late swap optimizer where it's not all that big of a deal. But just to save yourself the headache, it's there. Duke Nicola wants to know why LeBron is a center.
He's a center now.
Yeah, I mean, like that is, in theory, that's the answer. He should absolutely be power forward center from a fantasy perspective. Just center is wildly incorrect. But yeah, I mean, because he's a center. He's more of a center than anything else.
He starts at center for the Lakers every game now, and it's kind of, here's the other thing too. It's kind of stupid because he's a positionless player. He's a basketball player. He doesn't play any one position. And you make it so the Lakers don't even have a center. What do you need a center for? Yeah. They don't have some traditional center. It's like, hey, we have this, they have Dwight Howard who will play minutes, 15, 16, 17, 18 minutes. But for the most part, the Lakers aren't playing a center.
Yeah. I hate talking about positions in general because it's a complete whiff when you try to talk about it. Like the way that people will describe a point guard is insane because it's just like, well, why isn't Nikola Jokic the point guard? And they're like, well, he's the center. And it's just like, well, that logic is circular here because to me, you play the position of whatever you can guard. You're not like LeBron can't be the point guard because he can't guard a 1 to save his life at this point in time. That's why he's a 4 or a 5. That's why Nikola Jokic isn't a point guard, even though he has better stats than all of the point guards.
It is. And it is very based on size. Like remember the Heat days, Mario Chalmers was technically the starting point guard for the Heat. Yeah. Games on the line or Mario Chalmers is not the guy who has the ball in his hand in the majority of the time in that instance. He's just point guard because he is the height of the archetype of a player who plays point guard.
Yeah, it's so much easier to describe it based on the type of player you can guard than their offensive skill set because that can go any direction. Jokic is the guy to me that like completely breaks it. Might have the highest assist rate in the league right now. He actually might. I honestly don't know.
By the way, I'm totally down for us trying to push for Jokic to get point guard eligibility on DK and FanDuel.
He has the 6th highest assist rate in the league.
Yeah, and I'm surprised. To be honest, I'm surprised it's not higher.
Luka, Trae Young, Chris Paul, James Harden, DeJounte Murray, Nikola Jokic. Luka, by the way, also not a point guard to me, but people are going to argue that one until they're blue in the face. Centers on the non-JaVale McGee edition. Who is the best non-JaVale McGee center today?
The best non-JaVale McGee center today for me is Nurkic. And I'm a little concerned about him just because we don't know what's going to happen with the minutes of CJ McCollum. Because the more McCollum plays, the less I would like Nurkic. But I'm assuming that there's going to be some sort of minutes restriction for McCollum, which just opens up more opportunity for Nurkic, more playmaking opportunity, more usage. So Nurkic, we've seen him be really solid over the last couple of weeks. He had a couple of games that weren't good. One of them was because of a blowout against the Denver Nuggets. One game he played poorly against the Nets. Other than that, though, you could basically lock this guy in for 40 plus fantasy points in every other game that we've seen as of late when there was no Dame, when there was no McCollum, when there was no Lillard. I said Lillard twice, and there was no Lillard, Powell, or McCollum. So I still like Nurkic, and even with his price going up a little bit, I still like getting to him. And it's also favorable in his favor that he's no longer crazy popular.
Reggie Bullock out. Jakob Poeltl will play. So you like Nurk more than Gobert?
Slightly. I have them fairly similar, but I have a little bit more exposure to Nurkic and a little bit higher of a projection as well.
I have Gobert by a hair. I mean, technically speaking, I think I prefer LeBron to both of them. Just feels weird to say that, but I have Gobert and Nurkic basically right next to each other. Similar ownership too, so I don't have too much to add there. How do you feel about Jakob Poeltl now that he's in 6,600 today?
Let's see. I have him in 10% of my lineups, so he's in the player pool for me. But it feels about I think across the board he's pretty appropriately priced. I think he's about appropriately owned. Like I said, I have him 10%. He's 9.7% projected owned, so neutral play to me.
Yeah, I'm pretty much in the same place here. Center's just weird tonight. You can make a case. Like, I feel like the ownership is pretty accurate in that you either have one of these first four guys. You've got the obvious JaVale chalk. LeBron is LeBron, Gobert and Nurk, and then I think you can pick out of a hat of like 10 different dudes, and I really don't have anything that I could really argue with.
Yeah, I see it.
Like, who's a better option today, Jalen Smith or Maxi Kleber? I have no idea what to do there.
That one's actually Kleber for me, because I think there's a legitimate chance that Jalen Smith either isn't in the rotation or plays very limited minutes. He didn't play that much last game when Eytan got hurt, and a chunk of that came in garbage time.
I think Biyombo had the garbage time, no?
I thought Jalen Smith did as well. Maybe I'm misremembering.
Might as well look it up. What the hell else we got to do?
Because I remember...
I'm almost positive Biyombo closed in the garbage time, which he did.
I just remember I had a bet on Jalen Smith over 6.5 rebounds and...
No garbage time.
No garbage time. Derek White playing off the bench today. That's unexpected. So what's the starting lineup?
I told you to play Vassell, man.
Let's see.
I'm sure it's Forbes now that he sat out. Trey Jones still out. Okay, I get it. They're making it easier to stagger DeJounte and Derek White. I guess.
I don't know how I can't trust anything Pop does. Let's see.
It's been a while since he's been like a total asshat about it. I mean, I think you got to definitely discount Derek White's minutes a little bit now, right?
Yeah, and especially this matchup against the Suns. This is going to very, very highly. This is going to make him much less of an option. I kind of like Murray a little bit more now also, though.
Yeah, I'm happy to have White off if that's just slightly better for Murray for sure.
I just want to know who the other starter is before I go and start changing stuff.
You and me both. Orion with the super chat. FanDuel GPP, Robinson Earl punt. Is that a late slate question?
No Robinson Earl.
I mean, he's 3,900 at power forward on FanDuel. I think he's worth 5% of your lineups.
Let's see.
He's 7% owned. I don't know if it's a late slate thing, it's probably I like him even more than that. But I don't think he's good either.
So across 150 FanDuel lineups, he's in 3% for me.
Okay. I'd be happy to go slightly higher than that. And if this is a 3-game slate question, I would happily go to 10. Well, maybe I shouldn't say happily. I would go to 10. I wouldn't be happy. We're 4 minutes from lock, man. We made it today.
Yeah, and I'm trying to figure out. All right, so Poeltl starting, McDermott starting, Keldon Johnson starting, DeJounte Murray starting. Who's the fifth starter with Derek White coming off the bench? I guess it's Vassell.
Hold on, let me look at it quickly so that I can be correct before it pops up. DeJounte Murray, Keldon Johnson, Jakob Poeltl. That's 3, right?
And I think McDermott's 4. McDermott's 4.
Seems like Vassell, right? I mean, I think Vassell is the favorite.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's
either Vassell or Lonnie Walker, right? Or that they're being real weird with Bryn Forbes.
That would be so hilarious if Bryn Forbes goes from a random DNP coach's decision to starting.
Would it surprise you? Because it certainly wouldn't surprise me. But I would say that Vassell is the leader in the clubhouse.
Pop, man. So also people are saying Derek White came off the bench recently. But keep in mind, Derek White came off the bench because he was coming back from COVID and had a minutes restriction. I just assumed that was gone now. He played 25 minutes last game. I thought they would get him ramped up and he would just play his normal minutes now. I guess that's not the case. But last game they started... last game's also
Vassell,
weird.
Murray, McDermott, Landale, and Keldon Johnson.
Yeah, I guess Vassell in 30 minutes for him.
Yeah. Told you.
You did. You're ahead of the curve. I'm getting him on my player pool now.
You know me, Mr. Ahead of the curve. Even though there is no curve, everything's flat, right? What up, Kyrie? Best I could do at this point.
There was that reminds me, there was a volcano, like an underwater volcano that erupted or something like that the other day. Ooh, and if scary. You guys want good entertainment, find the tweet where NASA tweeted about it and the responses to it. It is a never-ending amount of entertainment from conspiracy theorists who are just analyzing so deeply all of the pictures and pointing out what's fake about it or what they think is fake.
What do they think is going to be the outcome when the gigantic tsunamis end up on the coast of everywhere because of it? Or at least at that point in time, you know what I mean?
NASA did it on purpose to keep their jobs or something.
Oh my God, can you imagine? Why work? Who wants to do that? The amount of people that think people want to work harder to lie is really difficult. If you also want to show that you claim that you are telling the truth, that's a lot of work.
So here's the other thing too, when it comes to this stuff, and I'm just talking through this as I'm trying to update my line for the Derek White stuff because I was getting exposure to Derek White, and now I'm minimizing that, trying to get to more of a sell because Josh was cool, unlike me, and he was out ahead of this. The majority of people are incompetent, and a lot of these conspiracy theories assume people are competent, which is just not the case. So that's something else that kind of throws a monkey wrench into a lot of it.
Yeah, unfortunately, dumb people are allowed to have the internet.
Yeah, it's one of the very, very many unfortunate aspects of the world.
Let's also not forget 50. Well, we'll say 49 to be true about this in a way. 49% of people below average intelligence.
Yeah. And a few of them on this show right now talking about basketball.
You and Jordan?
Yeah, yourself too.
Now, I have many documents in my past that claim higher than average intelligence.
If you say so.
Then again, I did have spiky bleach blonde hair, so we
did all post pictures of ourselves from high school on Twitter the other day, which got way more engagements than it warranted, but people seem pretty excited about it.
Yeah, I'm going home tomorrow. I'm gonna grab a couple additional pictures and give people a treat because I got some gems to let loose from the parents' house.
Ooh, looking forward to that.
I'm not, because I did not make a lot of good choices as a child.
Even though you were so smart?
Well, to be fair, my parents didn't help me out at all. The glasses that I had to wear up until I got contacts as a freshman were really unfortunate. Just it's a lot different than it is right now.
And then one final thing, and then we'll go. You know what else plays against you? The fact that even when you started to make money, you never changed your contacts or took them out to the point where you almost went blind.
Yeah, I was growing in little blood vessel thingies into the center of my eye. Luckily, stopped doing it. Just boxes of contacts everywhere now.
There you go. Yeah, it takes luck to change your contacts.
Exactly. CG with the final super chat. Think of how stupid the average person is and realize half of them are stupider than that.
That's pretty true.
There it is. Greg, go ahead and answer your phone. Good luck tonight, everybody. Thank you.
Chinese food's here.
Ooh, there you go. Well, go get it. Shout out to Yahoo for being the presenting sponsor. Good luck, everybody. Enjoy your night. Keep your eyes out for all the news. Follow at Awesemo NBA. You don't want to sleep on the Mike Conley news if it comes out. We're out of here. Peace.